is basically here at Great Mills Road. The high school is over there. We'll come back up the hill here. Don't fall. You see all the buses are on the street. There are a few buses in the school parking lot. And again, we've just gotten here and haven't been able to hear from anyone with the school system, St. Mary's County school system. We heard Miss Yingling from the sheriff's office talking to you guys earlier, saying that the situation is contained and that the reunification of the students with their parents and guardians was going to be over at Leonardtown High School. But with all the buses here, I gotta believe there are still students here who have not left the campus. And so we're here. We're going to cover it from this angle, guys. We know the governor's coming here, Congressman Steny Hoyer, who represents this district in Congress, also on their way down. And as soon as we get anything more official, we'll let you know. The good news is we've heard so far, at least from the sheriff's officials, is that the shooting here has not led to any fatalities, that there is one gunman who has gone to a local hospital, one of the shooting victims to D.C., and another one to a hospital down in this way again, guys. So we'll be here, and we'll just keep an eye on things and keep our shot up for you. And if you have any questions, fire away. Absolutely. And then let's try to lock this sucker down. Here you go. Yeah, this thing is like falling all over. Yeah, yeah, do it. Here, why don't you give him a shot? Give him a shot first, though. Yep, yep, yep. They're screaming for your picture. Yep, yep. I got it. Yep. They're on your shot. Just pull it from behind. You got it.
All right, hi guys, if you're with us, we are live in the Fox 5 DC newsroom. I'm Molly Nevola here tracking this story that you've probably been hearing about this morning. It started around in the 7 to 8 a.m. hour, guys, in Great Mills, Maryland. We have reporters headed to the scene. We have our anchors who are on the desk upstairs frantically gathering information here in the newsroom for you guys, and we've been putting together some digital content for you as well, videos from bystanders of this scene. Quick recap in case you do not know what is happening right now. According to St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office, Corporal Julie Yingling, who filled us in this morning, there have been 2 shooting victims, no fatalities in this incident, thank goodness. 2 have been shot and transported to the hospital, and the gunman is in custody, so we do know that for a fact. But there are still a lot of fuzzy clues and information coming to us. 1 victim has been transported to Washington Hospital Center, 1 to MedStar Health in that same area in Leonardtown, Maryland. Now, this is about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours from D.C. It's in southern Maryland, right along the very edge, that tip on the Chesapeake Bay. And the shooter was taken to Charles Regional Hospital Center. There's no word, actually, if the shooter was shot. Now, we're looking at camera pictures here from Bob Barnard and his photojournalist crew that they raced down there. We also have a couple other reporters en route. You can see here a little shot inside this vehicle as we rush our reporters to the scene to get you the latest information. Bob is up, though, and he is running, and I know he's providing some live shots for us, so we're going to follow along with him and his coverage to give you guys the latest. But again, 3 people shot, 3 victims, 2 shooting victims, no fatalities. Actually, 3 total, 1 including the gunman. So we don't know if the gunman was shot or not. It's still, like I said, a little fuzzy. We're still efforting that information. So if you are on with us or you're in the area, do let us know if you have any thoughts or comments or clues, or maybe you're from that area and you have any comments or information you want to give us. Feel free to chat with us. Tweet at us, guys, at Fox5DC. We'll want to use your content. We're taking a look right now at what I believe is a staging area for police to give us an update on what is happening. We have not yet heard an official setup of information from the sheriff's office calling. We've had them call in to our station, but not an official word to the media outlets on what exactly is going on. So it's a little fuzzy, but again, this comes just 4 days before the official March for Our Lives, which is this Saturday. We'll be broadcasting that. We'll be following that digitally for you guys right here in our newsroom. A very unfortunate turn of events here in, like I said, St. Mary's County, Maryland. We're live in the DC newsroom here at Fox 5 DC in Washington. Like I mentioned, racing our people up to the scene. They're a couple hours away. Students were evacuated. It was on lockdown for a short period. The incident, the event itself, was contained fairly quickly, according to reports. And now we've been combing through Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and getting as much content as we can, including this video from a bystander early on in the day. Listen to this.
This truck, he just got out of his truck and ran into school with his shotgun or machine gun.
If I were saying
I don't know what in the world is going on out here.
I have no clue in my mind what's going to happen. I have a great idea of what's going to happen.
But they started evacuating some of the students.
To say that basically takes away my credibility. I'm giving
this one here don't seem too excited.
What's going to happen based on all the information.
But the last guy that got out,
and this is the forecast that you're getting.
For that truck, I mean, he ran. Here they come, man. I don't know what the world is going on.
At some point
Bomb
today,
threat or what?
Or tonight.
This is crazy.
Where we have this 6 to 12 line. That I think this 6 to 12 line is.
And I hear more police officers.
So that was earlier video from this morning from a bystander witness who sent that video in, allowed us to use it. It was a little bit rough. I want to go back to Bob Barnard's scene there in the left corner of your screen. Let's bring that full picture and listen in.
Authorities are telling us at this point, and this is our first, your first, folks, your first good look at the scene here at Great Mills High School in southern Maryland, about an hour and a half south of Washington, D.C. this morning, with the road closed, lots of school buses here in front of the school, and still an active crime scene. There's no longer an active shooter. St. Mary's County Sheriff's officials telling us that the scene here is contained, but it is still an active crime scene with evidence gathering and what have you inside the local sheriff's department being assisted by Maryland State Police, the FBI, and ATF. And I'm just going to wipe our lens one more time here, guys. It is raining ahead of the snow coming, and a lot of sadness and shock here in St. Mary's County, Maryland. You're still hot. I'm running over to that bus driver, really, okay? I'm running. Hey, how are you? Are you here to take students?
Yes.
Are there still students in the school?
As far as I know, there are still students inside of the school building.
And that's why you're here, is to take them to Leonardtown High School. What do you make of what happened here this morning?
Heartbreaking. Very heartbreaking.
Thanks for doing your thing. She's got flowers sitting right here on the dashboard. So that's it, guys. I was curious, and she has confirmed that, in fact, that they are here to bring the students who are still inside the school. No longer in a lockdown situation. We heard from some kids who were in their classrooms with their desks and chairs against the doors, hearing shots in the hallway. And for a while they were on lockdown. You got to believe now it's a calmer situation, and they're just waiting to be allowed to leave. I think what I'm hearing from the sheriff's officials on our ride down was that they're screening kids before they let them go. But that's what this bus driver is telling us. They're waiting for the kids to officially be released from Great Mills High School. They'll put them on these school buses and take them up the road to Leonardtown High School. That's where Melanie Alnwick will be documenting some of those greetings from the parents who are obviously anxious. But that's why you see all the buses here, guys. Even though this shooting is now 8, 9, 10, 2.5 hours old, most of the students who were here are still inside the school building. Do what you want to do. I'm going to wipe you.
So guys, that was the voice of Bob Barnard. He's live there at the scene. You can see the string of school buses that he ran up to get a little comment from one of those bus drivers. But a very sad scene, a heartbreaking scene for a lot of those friends, family, and parents who are now on their way. You can see the buses there to pick up their kids at Leonardtown High School, which is about a 5 to 10 minute or so drive away from Great Mills High School. Again, this is all happening in St. Mary's County, Maryland, southern tip, right where it reaches the Chesapeake Bay, kind of converges with the eastern shore in Maryland. I'm sure you've been kind of seeing some of the maps from this morning. I'll see if I can draw one up for you. But we're taking this footage to our TV broadcast. I'm now taking it digitally for you guys who are on YouTube, so you can check into what's happening inside our newsroom. We're going to try to bring you the latest, including we'll try to effort whatever comes up by way of police media staging. If they give an update, hopefully we have not heard an official update from news officials there, police officials, but we are going to try to bring that into you as soon as we have it. And you heard him mention Melanie Alnwick, our other reporter. She is going to be at Leonardtown High School where students are being picked up, so we're going to check into her as well as they all arrive on the scene. But right now, this is the shot we have for now. I'll be trying to bring in some digital elements for you, various comments from, of course, Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland, and then also House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer. That's his district. He is apparently on the way to that scene, so once we get a glimpse of him or see him, we'll get you his comment as well. But let us know if you have any questions or comments throughout this stream. We're going to try to be bringing you the latest that we have digitally, just grouping everything together, all of our camera angles, everything for you guys to check in right here on YouTube. And we're live inside the DC newsroom, bringing you the latest on this Great Mills High School shooting, guys. This morning, coming just a few days before that march here in Washington, D.C., where hundreds of thousands of kids will descend upon D.C. to protest in support of change for gun violence in schools. There's Bob here on the scene of the high school. We'll switch over to Melanie's camera once we have a good shot of that, and I'll bring you some more elements from this morning coming up here on Fox 5 Live.
You to get wet here. You told us you have a child here, but he's at Leonardtown. Tell me what the scenario is for you.
Basically, we received a text this morning from our son, and he told us that there was a shooting. Sorry, this.
Yeah. Sorry for the rain. Yeah.
And you know, we just advised him to take shelter and be safe. and to keep in contact with us. And we maintained contact with him throughout the entire course of all this until he was put on the school bus to go be shuttled to Leonardtown High School.
So he was able to get out earlier.
No, he just got out probably about 45 minutes ago.
Gotcha.
So he was actually in the theater room, hiding in the back of the theater room behind curtains with some other students, and was texting us the whole time.
It wasn't able to call, but was quietly texting.
Well, he didn't want to call because he didn't know if, apparently somebody came in there, but he didn't know if it was the sheriff's department or, the gunman,
person,
you
sure.
know. So
What
it's
did
my understanding that the from what the sheriff's reported is that the gunman shot at someone in the hallway, and I guess the school resource cop that's there intercepted, and engaged in fire, and got the situation under control. But at that point in time, these kids didn't know what was going on, nor did the teachers. So
Or you.
I'm just glad that he's safe, and my heart goes out to the family members that have lost or have their kids injured, and some saying prayers to everyone that's been affected by this today.
I don't know if you guys back in the studio have heard this. This is the first I'm hearing that maybe the school resource officer engaged the gunman. Did your son tell you anything about the scenario? What he heard? Who's involved as far as he knows?
The only thing that we know is that there was a shooting. That's all he told us. That's all he knows.
He didn't know who it was or what it was all about.
There's been no names released, so and I don't suspect that's going to happen anytime soon. So, yeah.
And just curious, if your son's at Leonardtown, you're here because
I can't drive. The road's closed.
I got you. You're stuck here.
So yeah,
so he's gotten on the bus and is gone.
Right. I wasn't gonna leave until I made sure he was there and out of the school and safe. So
and now you're in the perimeter.
I'm kind of stuck here until I can leave until they open up the road. So
your name is?
My name is Diana. Abel.
Diana.
Yes. Abel.
Diana, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Glad your son's doing all right.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for getting wet for us. I appreciate it. Thank you. So interesting, guys. She came here to be near her son, who was put on a bus and was taken out. Look at this. Look at this. There's someone on the bus leaning out right there. You know what? Until they tell me no, I'm going over to see if we can talk to this kid. Looks like a kid. Oh, no, it's not. Hey, how are you, sir? What, yeah, I bet you have been. Tell me the situation from your vantage point.
It's just unloading children and taking them up to Leonardtown Tech Center.
I got you. So you're one of the drivers.
Yes.
You're just waiting to get kids.
Exactly.
Are they releasing them one at a time, groups at a time?
Groups of 6, I believe. Groups of 6. And we're just waiting patiently. We haven't heard anything from anyone from the school yet.
Okay, we just talked to a mom who said her son left maybe 45 minutes ago. So some kids have been released,
Yes.
but many more are still inside.
Correct. Yes. Probably another 800, I would say.
800 kids still inside the school.
Possibly. In my, I would think.
Well, with all these buses out here, you
Buses
got to
are
believe.
here.
Well, you got about a dozen buses out here, so that makes sense. What have you heard? What do you make? You know these kids. You know this school community. You see them every day. What do you make of what happened today? Whether you heard anything that specifically happened, the fact that this happened here.
It's a little bit shocking to me. I know it's been going around the county, but everybody says it could happen in your neighborhood, and it did, most definitely. So I really don't know. People are going to cry about gun control and more security, and so it's just a sad situation all the way around.
What is your name, sir?
Steve Woodburn.
Thank you, Steve. All right. Thank you, Steve. So seeing this person here, let's cut across again. Person waving. I thought it was a kid on the bus. It was actually one of the bus drivers. There's someone in the driver's seat, so he's obviously a driver from a different bus. And again, guys, you're looking down a Great Mills Road here, which is closed, and that's why Diana here is kind of stuck. She got in here and now can't get out. And these buses are waiting to take, as the bus driver said, maybe as many as 800 kids who are still inside the school, the scene of the latest school shooting here in the United States, and it just happened to be here in Southern Maryland. about an hour and a half south of DC, guys. So, you know, there may be an opportunity to speak to some of the kids as they leave, but some of them have already been taken to this Leonardtown High School, the next public high school north of here, and the rest are inside waiting to leave. Others who we spoke to when we first got to the scene hadn't even made it to school yet. This happened at the very beginning of the school day, just around 8 o'clock, guys, less than 3 hours ago, and a wild scene to see it with our naked eyes and to share with you through the camera lens of our TV camera, guys.
Again, guys, so the voice of Bob Barnard there. He is live on the scene outside of Great Mills High School in Great Mills, Maryland, and we're going to switch it over to our other reporter, Melanie, who is down at Leonardtown High School. It is the school about 10 minutes down the road where students were gathered and congregated so that parents could pick them up after this incident happened a couple hours ago. So we're already 2.5 or so hours into this, almost more so than that. So we're just kind of getting the scene here in the rainy, cold weather. You can see there that camera angle. This is the best view we're going to get of the high school there with police surrounding it. They swarmed in, fast speeds. We saw some of that bystander video, and there are the buses lined up to get those students and usher them over to the correct spot. So we're going to listen in as much as we can to Bob's reporting and then go over to Melanie, who's over at Leonardtown. Just going to be switching our feeds here and there, guys, so you can get the best of our best digital coverage here. And if you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to use the live chat. Comment with me. We're live in the newsroom here. We'll listen to you and answer your questions as well.
Okay. I'll hold that for you, Mel.
Okay, I'll follow you. Still hot. Yeah, you're still hot. They keep yelling in my ear. I know. I know. Just give them a shot, you know, give them something. I know. Here's what it is. They have no other camera down here.
Well, Matt's here. I saw Matt. Come back from here back there.
Yeah, I don't know if he's... metal box and I'll put the tripod up. Hey.
She got shot. I don't know where she got shot, but I know she's in stable condition, and she's gonna be okay. But she did get shot.
And this is just incredible. You're shaking now. You're shaking physically.
I didn't believe that something like this would happen near me in real life. It's terrifying.
Your mom came to get you.
Yes.
What was that like to see your mom?
I bawled my eyes out. It was exciting to see her. It was scary. Waiting for her. I just wanted to be home and see my friends. I live in Great Mills District, so I know a lot of the kids that go there. And I know that some of the ones that are really close to me are safe and they're in Leonardtown right now. And that makes me happy to know that they're okay.
Are you going to be at the march on Saturday?
I don't know, honestly. But I was part of the school walkout last week, but I don't know about the one on Saturday.
What else are you hearing from people you know at Great Mills?
I'm hearing that it was a domestic thing, that a girl broke up with a boy and that he wanted to attack her. But he didn't end up shooting her, though he shot somebody else. And then I heard that he killed himself, but I personally don't know what's true and what's not true.
Yeah, a lot of rumor going around at this point and hard to know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, go home, get warm, take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. So again, that's just one of the students here. We're seeing so many parents come. Mike, just go ahead and pan across the street there. You can see, be careful there, Mike, don't go out in the street. Just the cars, the line of cars that are here. We're still about, I would say, a minute or so on foot to the reunification center. Haven't been able to get there yet. We just wanted to stop here because we saw so many people pulling over and parking. So parents are coming to pick up their kids from other schools, from Leonardtown High School, from the middle school here as well, because those kids are shaken. You can see it with Michaela just barely holding it together. They want to go home. They want to be to a place that they feel is safe. And it's really a sad commentary that kids don't feel safe in school anymore. Once again, too close to home. We're trying to confirm some information with the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office. They do believe I have a little bit more information about where this happened. Again, we heard from students that it happened in the hallway, and again, you were hearing there from Michaela that certainly, again, with caution, she was hearing that it may be a domestic. She happens to know one of the victims, one of the girls that was shot. So it's just incredible to stand here on the road and see just the line of cars, the parents who are coming, whether their kids went to Great Mills or not, just feeling the need to be there and be there for their kids. So what we're going to do here, because we're down by the middle school, we are going to try to get a little closer to the reunification center, the James Forrest Career and Tech Center, so that we can see perhaps as those buses come in, maybe see some of those parents, talk to some of them, see how they're doing. But obviously you can see a very, very traumatic and difficult morning for all of St. Mary's County. Back to you guys. Correct. Yes, yes. So she said that she lives in that area. She knows a lot of kids that go to that high school. We've got some police officers checking our vehicle out right now, so we may have to move here in just a second. The wind is also getting to be pretty incredible here. So we're going to try to fight the weather and fight the traffic as well to try to get a little bit of a closer view for you guys and get a little bit more information directly from those students that were affected.
12273 right now.
She's gone. She's gone.
All right, guys, so that's Melanie Almwick right there, very much so severely battling the wind and weather and the cold rain there. She's outside of Leonardtown High School, where students were transported after this morning's shooting. Like she was saying in that interview, still a lot of fuzzy details and not a lot of concrete information. But we are just seeing a tweet from St. Mary's County Police that they will be holding a press conference, guys, at 1 o'clock Eastern time. There's the tweet, the latest. This is 8 minutes ago, regarding this incident at Great Mills High School. So that will be the official word as to what exactly happened. We'll hear more from them then. We just haven't heard an official gathering of information. This morning has been quite frantic. Luckily, we are hearing no fatalities. We're hearing that those 2 people were shot, that the gunman is now in custody, and that girl, the witness, who was friends with one of the girls, purportedly saying it may have been a domestic dispute. We don't quite know the details there yet, but that may end up being what it was, but it doesn't get rid of the fact that this is still quite a scary situation. Guns in schools, 3 people very much affected, children or high school students running from the school today. The girl herself involved in the student walkout last week, not quite sure if she'll attend the March for Our Lives this Saturday, but we're going to track this throughout the afternoon, guys, and we're live here in the DC newsroom on our digital stream, bringing you the latest on this shooting. I want to quickly show you also a mother-daughter exchange via text message that we were able to gather. The mother let us have permission to use this. You can see right here just the emotion in this text message. The student saying that she heard a giant boom in the hallway and then everyone went outside. The teacher left and there's a lockdown. She says, "Mom, I'm panicking." And the mom says, "Are you stuck? Where are you right now?" And this kind of goes on. There's a sort of a longer exchange there between the mother and daughter. And once we have those pictures, I'll try to bring them to you, but quite heart-wrenching, very emotional to see these text messages come out. As we know, we're living in this digital age, so people are Instagramming this up, they're Snapchatting throughout the event. We've been on our phones trying to get this material to bring to you the latest stuff as to what's going on. But meanwhile, guys, I don't want to neglect the situation that's happening in Austin, Texas. Still, the series of explosions, the latest happening around midnight last night at a FedEx center, guys. And officials down there are giving the latest report. They're connecting these package explosions, trying to figure out who is sending them, who is bringing them together. I want to bring the latest right now from police in Austin. As we continue to monitor this scene, I'm going to bring you the Austin police on what's going on.
AEL Carpenter, C-A-R-P-E-N-T-E-R, who's the mayor of the city of Schertz. Michael Carpenter, the mayor, city of Schertz, is the first speaker, followed by the chief of police, Michael Hansen, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, H-A-N-S-E-N, H-A-N-S-E-N, Michael Hansen, the chief of police. Those two individuals will be the first two speaking. After those two individuals have an opening statement, we'll have questions answered by both the ATF and FBI. For the ATF, it'll be the acting special agent in charge, Frank Ortega, F-R-A-N-K, O-R-T-E-G-A. Frank, F-R-A-N-K, Ortega, O-R-T-E-G-A, who's the acting assistant special agent in charge for ATF. And then from the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, be the assistant special agent in charge, James Smith, J-A-M-E-S, Smith, S-M-I-T-H. James Smith, assistant special agent in charge for the FBI. Michael Knight, the public information officer for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF. So just to recap, the mayor will begin, followed by the chief of police. And then the questions will be posed by and answered from ATF and FBI. There may be other individuals that are up around the podium, and those are representatives from various components and departments within the city that have all part of this investigation.
Guys, just to give you guys as our viewers an update, we're looking at official media conference right here with police in Austin after 4 explosions have rattled the Austin, Texas area in the past month. We've been following these explosions. Last week we had a lot of it on our live stream, and I want to see what police have to say, this update. We've been kind of anticipating this all morning, so pulling it in live, he just sort of gave the litany list of people that will be speaking from the FBI and whatnot, but they're still trying to figure out who is behind these explosions. The most recent one being in Texas in a San Antonio suburb. It happened early this morning, just after midnight, at a FedEx facility. Supposedly that was on the way somewhere else, but it blew up not in time for getting to its achieved destination, and they're going to be covering what they know right now about these explosions. Now, meanwhile, we're still looking at left side of your screen coverage of this Great Mills High School shooting. More details to come out on this, and as we have more reports and more interviews from students, we'll bring that to you as well. But I am hearing that the official word, the official update, the press conference will be held at Chancellor's Run Regional Park, which is in that same area, at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So a bit of a push out. We have a couple hours till we hear the official word on what is going on in Maryland. But we do have our live reporters on the scene, so we're going to be jumping back and forth to give you the coverage in total, so that if you're joining us from wherever you are, I know you guys are all over the nation, all over the world, you have the latest on what is going on as of now for breaking news. And we're going to be listening into this Austin explosion presser very shortly as we continue to gather pictures and videos, digital content here from the shooting this morning. Like I said, 3 people transported, 2 of them are victims and the alleged shooter, authorities say. in the shooting at Great Mills High School. That's in southern Maryland, deep down on the corner, right on the Chesapeake Bay. That's what we know right now. Melanie Allenwick is live there with one camera. We also have Bob Barnard with another. So we're going to be jumping into their feeds and getting the latest from what they can glean from that scene. For now, guys, let's bring up the sound on this Austin, Texas press conference and also monitor what's happening in Maryland. Rainy, cold day, very, very cold. I know our reporters are battling the weather as they try to get these interviews, so it's quite chaotic scene there. But we're going to bring you the latest, what we have from inside our newsroom. Guys, stay with us here on our YouTube channel and let us know if you have any thoughts or comments. We'll try to answer your questions.
Have they decided to tear that one down or not? I don't think they've made a decision. They kind of did a cool job with it. I mean, I was a little surprised when they walked in there. Yeah, I was not expecting that. Especially that quick. Right. Around to make it right like that. Right. Yeah, you're getting from the Texas report. Yeah, I know. I know, I feel for you. Because usually this time of year I get sent to like northern North Dakota. Right, yeah. Where it's twice as cold as Chicago. Right.
I might play another.
I work for a local publication in downtown San Antonio called Revard Report. It's a former editor at Express News, starting a nonprofit news site. Oh yeah, so it's local news. Yeah, yeah. They just did one in Chicago. Oh, did they? Yeah, and they shut down the DNA.
I wanted to be a primate. I hate Jeff Bezos.
I never learned.
So what's it called now? Yeah. Now, there's like this whole, nonprofit news network here starting up, and we're part of that. Yeah, and that's exactly what this is. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, it seems to be working for us. I mean, I was the third hire, and now we have like a team of 16 people. So it's taking off. Yeah, it's changing. I mean, yeah, keep saying newspaper businesses. No, that's just adapting. Yeah.
You're going to ask because we have several individuals that are going to come up here. We can just move back a few feet. Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, y'all stand down from me.
And to answer your question, we will be able to address the questions in Spanish afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
So we do have that capability.
Appreciate it.
Guys, Austin is dealing with this serial bomber, or what they think is a serial bomber behind these explosions. 4 bombs in 17 days, and they've been able to say that they believe these bombs were meant to send a message, according to police. So we're going to hear them clear the air here on what the final update is right now on this case. It's quite scary for people in Austin. As we know, this all sort of started surrounding the music festival South by Southwest, which was going on in downtown Austin. Now, a lot of these bombings and delivering of these packages happened on the east side of Austin, so a little bit of a different area, but quite scary to know that this was at a time when there were a lot of tourists in town for South by Southwest. But the fourth blast really has led police to believe that there is a serial bomber involved in this. And we're going to hear from the ATF spokespeople coming up shortly on the latest with these explosions. But we're also monitoring the scene, guys, in Maryland. When we have more information, more interviews for you, we're going to bring that to you about the school shooting. Unfortunately, what we're hearing is that it's a possible domestic situation involving possibly a girl and a boy and another person who was there who also was injured. But we'll hear the latest from them when they give their official press conference at 1 o'clock Eastern. So we're looking to that time for more word from police. For now, guys, let's listen into Austin. We'll kind of keep both of these on the loop so we can keep up with what's happening in both Maryland and Texas. As we do with our live and breaking news show, guys, you're watching Fox 5 Live in the DC newsroom here at Fox 5 DC, bringing you the latest on YouTube from our newsroom.
Yeah, exactly. Once you get 30, it's like, I got a New York Times alert on my phone. That's what woke me up. And whenever I see San Antonio. Yeah, gotta go. Where are my batteries on my knees right now? Pretty small. It's most industrial. Oh god, I don't know. Probably under 7,000. But it's mostly businesses, people commute here. Very small town. A lot of this kind of stuff. Well, actually, Winterest is 2,800 people.
All right, guys, before we jump into this press conference, looks like it's a little bit lagging to start. I want to show you the most recent tweet here from Prince Mary County's public schools. They're saying counselors and other support staff are at the reunification center at Leonardtown High School campus. That's where we had one of our reporters, Melanie, there. They're saying parents and guardians of Great Mills High School students, please have your ID ready when you come for pickup. So the latest from schools kind of getting the information out there to parents saying, hey, this is where you can get your kids. This is how we're going to keep it organized and safe. So it sounds like we're continuing to hear from them. We're continuing to monitor on our end the Twitter accounts of the county, of the police department, of the public schools as well, to hear the latest on this. We know that Steny Hoyer, House Minority Whip, it's his district. He's on his way there to get the information, to be on the scene, and to perhaps give a few remarks. So we're going to be watching for that as well if he does come down to Leonardtown High School or Great Mills. Here's a live look again. Parents picking up their kids in this rainy, cold weather. What a scene that is. Pretty chaotic, pretty ugly there. And I know it's a big weather day too, because we're anticipating 3 to 6 inches or so of snow tomorrow. So that's been a whole another story that we've been working on, is the snow for tomorrow. But you can see here this cold, wet, rainy weather. Parents efforting this pickup of their kids as we wait for more information at 1 o'clock from St. Mary's County, from the police there. That's when they're scheduled to give their press conference. But we're going to jump down to Texas, guys. Austin is going to give an update on these explosions. 4 explosions in 17 days. Here's the latest from the FBI down in Austin.
Good morning. Early this morning, a package exploded in the distribution facility here in Schertz. An employee who reported an injury was evaluated on site and then released. At this time, however, the scene and area are secured and the investigation is continuing. The safety of the employees and the public has been, is, and remains our principal focus. Pertinent to the focus on public safety, the City of Schertz is engaged and is working in cooperation with the FBI and the ATF. Here with me this morning are my Chief of Police, Michael Hansen, Assistant Special Agent in Charge, James Smith from the FBI, and Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Frank Ortega from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. At this time, I'd like to recognize our Chief of Police, Michael Hansen, who will provide you with some additional information. Chief?
Good morning. At approximately 12:25 this morning, an explosion was called in to the police department. It occurred at the facility at 9935 Dewar Lane. Members of the Schertz Police, Fire, and EMS responded and determined that in fact an explosion had occurred. Shortly thereafter, members of the San Antonio Police Department Bomb Unit, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and the FBI arrived as well. A package had been traveling along the automated conveyor when it had exploded. One employee that was standing near the explosion later complained of ringing in the ears. She was treated and released. We were very fortunate that there were no injuries. It's very early in the investigation, obviously, but we're confident that neither this facility nor any location in the Schertz area was a target. With that said, I need to reiterate the message that we've heard so often recently, that if you have a package that was not expected, if you are suspicious of the return address, if you come across any suspicious object, do not touch it, do not move it, but contact 911. Wish to take this opportunity to thank the assistance provided by the FBI, the BATF, Texas Department of Public Safety, the San Antonio Police Department, the Bexar County Sheriff's Office, as well as the resources that have been provided by the Southwest Texas Regional Advisory Council and the BCFS Emergency Management. Now I'll open it for questions.
Did the package come from the FedEx store on Brody Lane? The FBI and the ATF are there right now in Austin. Did the package just come from there?
Well, we can't go into the details of the package. We're still under investigation. We just arrived pretty much, and we're entering the building as we speak.
How do you guys know the package was supposedly from Austin then? Was it the label? What was it?
I can't say what the package was destined for, but again, we're still under investigation.
Can this be the work of a copycat just because it was sent directly into something like this?
Well, that's what we're working on right now. We're trying to understand what actually happened. We're trying to surf through the evidence and let the evidence take us to where we need to go.
So can you confirm that the package contained nails and shrapnel?
Again, we're still looking into this. We're still early on. It happened late last night, and we arrived early in the morning, so we're still working on it.
Do you suspect this is connected to the serial bomber in Austin?
We do not know at this point right now.
What are the similarities if any
nails and shrapnel?
I'm sorry?
Can you confirm that the package had nails and shrapnel?
No, I cannot confirm that right now.
How do you know this wasn't meant for someone here?
We can't compare them right now because, again, we just entered the building just recently. We had to make sure the building was safe before we could go in. So we're still at the early stages.
Can you tell us the size of the package? For someone here in these shirts. The chief just said that.
We can't confirm that right now. Again, we've just entered the building.
We just said that it wasn't targeted for anyone here.
We just entered the building. We're trying to understand that right now, but right now we have no indications that there's any issues or threats to the public here in Schertz.
Can you tell us the size of the package and if there's any evidence left for you to actually gather?
I can't go into the details of that right now.
Is there anything new you can add?
It's still an ongoing investigation, and we can't provide that information at this time.
Are there employees in the facility still? Are they kept there, or they've been released?
All the precautions have been taken, necessary precautions have been taken, and right now investigators are conducting their investigation.
How will deliveries be disrupted for in terms of as your investigation continues? Will it be per day? Will it be
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
How long will your deliveries be disrupted for?
Well, we're working with the various delivery companies right now. with the ongoing investigation. They have their security procedures and protocols, so they're doing the normal steps with the security and protocols, but we are working with them on their regular packages throughout the day.
So is this FedEx facility offline right now? Is this FedEx facility operating in any way, or do people have to wait for their packages to come in?
Again, we're working with a delivery company right now about the packages that are in there. Again, we just we just entered the building, so the building has been evacuated, and we are ensuring that it's safe to go forward.
Sir, what can you tell us? Do you tell people who may be concerned that it may be connected and they're genuinely scared? You go from East Austin to Southwest Austin to now north of San Antonio. What can you tell people to keep them from panicking?
This is a very fluid investigation, and we want the general public to know that their safety is our #1 priority. So we encourage anybody in the public that has information to call our tip line, 512-472-TIPS. If they have any information, all leads will be pursued and investigated. Again, public safety is our #1 priority.
I know you said that before, but you have 500 federal agents here in Central and South Texas, and this has still happened. How can you calm people's fears? You have more than 500 federal agents. The ATF is telling our investigative unit this is the ATF's top priority, but another explosion has happened. What can you do to calm people's fears?
We have agents from across the country. We have our national response team here. We got canine explosive detection canines here. We have intel research specialists. We're working hand in hand with our FBI partners, state and local partners. We've been working round the clock. Again, the public safety is our #1 priority, and we're providing all the resources that we can to finally find the person or individual responsible for this.
Are you confident you'll be able to pull the name that was on the package?
Again, we can't go into that right now.
I understand
we're still trying to sort through the evidence. So we're still at the early stages of this particular event here. Part of the investigation.
Do you have new evidence thanks to this package and maybe some surveillance video? What kind of evidence do you have now that you didn't have?
We can't go into the evidence that we do have, but again, we've just approached this building. I mean, we're only 3 or 4 hours into this. First, the priority was to render this building safe, so the agents can go in and conduct the investigation and gather the evidence. So we are still we're going to be here for a little while.
Were there any other packages found while y'all were looking through the facility? Did you find anything else while you're looking through the facility?
We have not actually done a search yet.
What about the one at the facility, FedEx facility in Austin by the airport? Is that connected at all? Do we know yet?
I'm unaware of that. What happened over there?
Well, there's agents there too. So there's agents at this. You guys are here, and then there's agents also at FedEx facilities back in Austin. Why are you guys there? Do you know why you guys are there?
No, I don't know personally why we're there.
What happens to all the packages here now? People are asking what do they do if they want to pick up the packages here, or if you've got something about this over here?
Well, we're asking people not to come here right now because we're still a crime scene. We're still searching
One more question.
We're still searching the packages and all to ensure that there is no other devices there. So we're asking people just be patient, and if they know of something, definitely call your local FBI, your local ATF, or your local police department and report it. We need the public's help right now.
What's the plan for FedEx employees? Those that were evacuated this morning, those who may have to report to work. What's the plan?
You'd have to contact FedEx on that one.
What kind of damage did you guys see inside?
Again, like I said earlier, we just don't know what's going on.
What do you know? Because I mean, you've given us a whole bunch of we don't know. So what can you tell us?
We can tell you that the public safety is our #1 priority, and we're following all leads that we receive, and that's why we encourage the general public to help us out and provide any information that they may have by again calling our tip line.
Can you say how it detonated?
One last question,
What are
please.
you telling shipping employees regarding their safety?
One at a time, please.
What caused it?
This is an ongoing investigation. I can't get into the details of that right now.
It was reported that it linked from one conveyor belt to another.
No, I can't confirm that at all right now.
Did the employees
Thank you.
handle it?
Have a good day.
What are y'all's names? Can we get y'all's names again? Can we get y'all's names? What were their names again?
I'll go over the names and their spelling. Just keep in mind that this is a very fluid situation, and there are a lot of questions that were addressed. And based on the magnitude of this investigation, we're looking at all of our resources, and we're encouraging that the public provide any information, provide videos and any other information pertaining to this or any other suspected package. At this point, I will go over the names again. There is not a scheduled press event for today. If there's any other information that will be put out through the respective social media accounts.
Sir, with all due respect, with these other incidents in Austin, we've been able to hear pretty soon afterwards how the package detonated, whether somebody handled it or the trip prior. I mean, to not even know, was it the conveyor belt that agitated something? Did this employee handle it? We have to know something.
Due to the early stages of this investigation in this particular facility, we're working hand in hand to collect all the information and put together a timeline. And that information will be relayed through the social media accounts of different departments.
Is the delay because it happened in this facility, that it wasn't out in the open in other areas? Is the delay because it happened within a package facility?
So all the other questions will be addressed at a later time when the information is received. Regarding the Spanish, any questions that need to be addressed in Spanish?
Yes.
Sí, por favor. Gracias, Cristina, por ayudarnos. Gracias. Cristina, nada más.
Okay. Para los medios en español, mi nombre es Cristina Garza. Yo soy vocera del FBI. Estoy aquí para relatar información.
We will come back into the newsroom now after that briefing from police and FBI down in Austin. A lot of you guys commenting on the stream, a lot of people concerned that the FBI didn't really create a sense of understanding or answers for the public on this to sort of assuage their fear on these bombings. But what's interesting about this one is that this last one sort of blew up at a FedEx facility, never reached its intended destination. And these other ones in the past have actually not been sent through a public service, a public system, USPS or FedEx. So this one is kind of taking a turn of events. So we're going to continue to monitor this and see what information they can give us on this very, very frightening time for Austin residents. But meanwhile, back at home, guys, here in the DMV area, we're continuing to monitor the scene in Maryland, in Great Mills, Maryland, guys, down in the very southern tip of southern Maryland. I want to show you a tweet that just came out, a very recent tweet from the St. Mary's Sheriff. Now, they're saying here on your screen, a brief press conference will be held in a few minutes, but the more detailed conference on the shooting, like we mentioned earlier, will be at approximately 1 o'clock Eastern time, and they give the location of that press conference. So that is what we're waiting for now, and I believe what you're looking at here is the camera. I believe so. I believe that's one of our cameras with the rain that is waiting this brief press conference on what exactly happened. So I know we're going to take that live to our TV air. We're also going to be here live on the digital studio, and we're watching all of this unfold from inside the newsroom. So trying to bring you the latest on both things here. Now, I mentioned we have a couple different cameras. So we have a couple reporters who are out there on the scene. We have a couple different views of what's going on. You can see this rainy windshield wiper scene from inside one of our vans there, getting the information outside of Leonardtown. You could just barely see that sign, Leonardtown High School. That's where kids are being picked up. That's where the staging center is, I believe, being made for them to give this brief press conference. And we're going to try to bring that to you live. So that is all coming up next once we can get that efforted for you. But that's the latest that we have from St. Mary's Sheriff. Let's listen into Melanie. Looks like she's just coming.
You have to just be very calm and that steady emotion for them to get them home and let them de-stress and do what they need to do. So we are going to try to see if we can get the rest of our equipment working, maybe jump out here in a little bit and see if we can see exactly what's going on with some of the parents and the people that are coming back and forth. I believe that they are parents who are coming here to get their students. So we want to verify that, see if we can get any more of their personal feelings, their firsthand accounts. And when we do get that, of course, we'll be right back with you here on Fox 5. Back to you guys.
All right, guys, so that's Melanie, and this is what I believe is the staging area for that next brief press conference that we're going to be bringing you hopefully very soon on our digital air. It's also on our air, so if you're local to the DMV, you can also pop on Fox 5 and check it out. But we're going to try to effort all reaction, all interviews, everything we can get. Take a look at this video from earlier this morning. We got some reaction from a mom of a Great Mills High School student who talked to Bob after 2 people were shot.
Anyone who can, I mean, we just need, if they can just put metal detectors at the doors, I mean, get some wands, send the letters out to the parents, and I mean, that is a preventative measure.
You hear that in city schools, but you would think here in St. Mary's County, right, they do it in D.C. You go to Wilson High School, the best public school in D.C., but here, I'm sorry, but you would think, you know, St. Mary's County, even here.
Listen, with all the lives of all the children throughout the United States that have been taken, we at this point need some action. We need action. I mean, how many more children have to lose their lives?
For you to freely walk into a school and shoot people,
you know?
The buses are still going to the tech center.
What's that?
I said the buses are still heading out. Like, they didn't have enough buses for everyone to go home, so they had to take everyone to the tech center.
All right, guys, we're hearing just about a 1-minute countdown. Here we go.
Sheriff Cameron will be giving a brief statement. With Sheriff Cameron is also Sheriff Troy Berry and Major Morris from the Maryland State Police. At this time, we will not be taking any questions. At approximately 1 o'clock, we will be holding a more detailed press conference, as detailed as we possibly can be. So if you can all refrain and hold your questions until then, that would be appreciated. And now I will go ahead and call up Sheriff Tim Cameron.
Good morning. What we know thus far is that Great Mills High School began its school day this morning at 7:45 a.m. like many other days, except for on this day, a male student produced a handgun and fired around, wounding a female student and another male student in a hallway of Great Mills High School just before classes begun. The victims of the shooting were transported by EMS, and the one male student went to MedStar St. Mary's Hospital, is in stable condition. The female student was transported to shock trauma facility, is in critical condition. And I am told that at 10:41 a.m. this morning, the shooter was confirmed deceased at Charles Regional Medical Center in Plata. When the shooting took place, our school resource officer, who was stationed inside the school, was alerted to the event and the shots being fired. He pursued the shooter, engaged the shooter, during which that engagement he fired a round at the shooter. Simultaneously, the shooter fired a round as well. So in the hours to come, in the days to come, through detailed investigation, we will be able to determine if our school resource officer's round struck the shooter. The school resource officer is uninjured and was not struck by any firearm projectile. The SRO is with our detectives now, as are witnesses to the event. They are still at the high school in a secured area. The remainder of the students from Great Mills High School, as our protocol and process and training, we brought buses in and had them removed to the Forest Tech Center in Leonardtown for parent reunification. That is ongoing as we speak. I would like to thank my colleagues from the allied agencies that responded. It was a mass response this morning from Police, Fire, and Rescue. Charles County Sheriff's Office, thank you, Troy Berry. Major Morris, thank you. The Maryland State Police responded, as did the NAS Police, Calvert County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and the ATF. At 1 o'clock, I hope to give you more details about this event. I know that you have a number of questions, and I'm alerted to a number of things that are out there on social media about the potential relationship between the shooter and any of the victims. At this time, we can't confirm any of that. That is what this investigation will do. And at 1 o'clock, I would anticipate being able to release identities of perhaps the shooter and the victims as well. And we would know by then that notification is being made. So again, I wanted to lay the groundwork for what's to come at 1 o'clock.
Can you confirm the identity of the school resource officer?
No, I can't. Not at this time.
There have been threats posted on social media a month or two ago at this school. Can you say anything about if any of what happened today was related to that?
So that's part and parcel to the investigation. We'll go on to determine if anything on social media was relevant to this day. I'm not aware of anything, but again, we're going to go back and comb through that as well as anybody involved, their social media posts.
How many resource officers are for the school?
We have a school resource officer assigned to each of our high schools.
One?
Yes, yes.
Again, we're not taking questions right now at 1 o'clock. I appreciate it. Thank
I
you.
would like to mention that the FBI has set up a 1-800 line. It's 1-800-CALL-FBI. If you have additional information that you would like to share with us, we set that 800 line up. So please give us a call there. I'll see you all again at 1 o'clock. Thank you all very much.
Sure. From what you know right now, can you just speak at all a little bit broadly about the response to this today, both the school resource officer's response and the police and EMS response in the immediate aftermath?
Yeah, so as I said, it was a mass response. You know, this is what we train for, this is what we prepare for, and this is what we pray that we never have to do. And on this day, we realize our worst nightmare, that our greatest asset, our children, were attacked in one of our places of a bastion of safety and security, one of our schools. So obviously that's what we're talking about right now across the country. And you know, the notion of it can't happen here is no longer a notion. So despite training, you hope that you never have to do this, ever. And so now we're a very tight-knit community. And so now what I would ask our community to do would be pray for those victims and hope that we can return to some type of normalcy in our schools and in our community.
When was your last formal active shooter training exercise?
We train on that all the time, and in the schools was in the last calendar year. In fact, unfortunately, we've had incidences that were people with guns in some of the schools and bomb threats, which we treat similarly. So we talk about school safety, school response weekly. In fact, we've done a number of parent meetings, community meetings on this within the last couple months. That's all the questions I'm going to take. I'll see you at 1. Thank you.
You guys, please don't stand out in the hallways. The division manager here, we have wheelchair safety, and it is a senior center, so we have to be real careful.
Thank you, Ty. And shortly we'll open those doors, and there'll be coffee, water, and iced tea for you guys. And we invite you to hang out in this room until the front conference.
So guys, that's the latest from Tim Cameron, the sheriff there in St. Mary's County. He brought a little bout of emotion there at the end of that statement. But again, we know we're going to hear more details at the 1 o'clock press conference. A lot more to come on this scenario, what unfolded this morning. But what we do know, guys, is that there was a shooter. He shot, allegedly, a female student who was in critical condition, was transported to the hospital, and a male student. The gunman himself was engaged by a student resources officer. The gunman also fired back, and eventually gunman was pronounced dead at about 10:41 a.m. Eastern time this morning. So we know that there is one fatality, that is the shooter, and 2 people are injured. It's what we have in our headline. It's what you've been reading on our stream today. Again, these were just some brief comments from the sheriff, the latest on it, and the most official information that we've heard standing at a podium surrounded by media. Like he mentioned, didn't take any questions, unfortunately, but there are still a lot of things I think that people are wondering. And if you have any more information, guys, if you have more questions, comments, tweet at us, Fox 5 DC. We're watching, we're monitoring all of our social media platforms, and we're looking for more content as well on this. We still have a scene in that area right here. Our camera's a little fuzzy right now. The weather's not doing the best for us today, but we have a couple cameras there. Some are halted, some are en route to other locations, some are coming back, but we're going to continue to monitor this story. Meanwhile, for some of the interviews that we got this morning on our air, we had a couple reporters talk to some students, some parents of students, really chilling interviews from these kids in the moment when this was all happening. Take a look at this one, and then we'll show you one of the students whose friend was apparently involved in the shooting.
Anyone who can, I mean, we just need, if they can just put metal detectors at the doors, I mean, get some wands, send the letters out to the parents, and I mean, that is a preventative measure.
You hear that in city schools, but you would think here in St. Mary's County, right, they do it in D.C. You go to Wilson High School, the best public school in D.C., but here, I'm sorry, but you would think, you know, St. Mary's County, even here.
Listen, with all the lives of all the children throughout the United States that have been taken, we at this point need some action. We need action. I mean, how many more children have to lose their lives?
For you to freely walk into a school and shoot people,
The buses are still going to the tech center.
What's that?
I said the buses are still heading out. Like, they didn't have enough buses for everyone to go home, so they had to take everyone to the tech center one at a time. And it's just not okay, because I know some of my friends were still in the locker rooms or in their classrooms, just still sitting there. Yes, and it's sad.
Yeah, but they can do something. I mean, we can't keep losing our children to this. If someone can just make a decision and put the metal detectors at the door, get the wands, send the letters to the parents, check the book bags.
It may take a little longer, but it's worth it.
We don't need to keep losing our children.
There's kids doing this because they're being bullied, or because they don't have friends, or they don't fit in. They're doing all this because kids are pushing them that, and it's sad because no one literally like looks at that one kid that they're like bullying or doing something to at all, and they just need to stop that.
And we don't know the scenario, but are you pretty sure that this was a case of a student kind of indiscriminately shooting, or was this a targeted, based on what you're hearing? Do you know, do your friends know if someone was sought out, or if this just happened to be someone who was upset and went into a school with a gun and started firing?
I think they did that because something might have happened, or they felt some type of way. They just really don't like the kids here, or that was just their motive to just like come out for someone, because someone got hurt and they just were there at the wrong time.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
So again, guys, we're continuing to follow this story. We're live in the DC newsroom. You can see the people behind me doing their research, frantically gathering information. We're still on our air, too. If you're local in the DMV area, you can pop on Channel 5, and we're talking about the scene and the maps and everything. I'm trying to gather in some digital elements to show you guys what the scene was like this morning, because unfortunately we don't have any live pictures right now that are compelling of the scene. We do know that the press conference, the official press conference from St. Mary's County Sheriff, is coming up at 1 o'clock Eastern, so we'll kind of roll on with some other news after that. But check out this very, very emotional little interview here with the student who was apparently close to the female student who was shot this morning.
I didn't believe that something like this would happen near me in real life. It's terrifying.
Your mom came to get you. Yes. What was that like to see your mom?
I bawled my eyes out. It was exciting to see her. It was scary waiting for her. I just wanted to be home and see my friends. I live in Great Mills District, so I know a lot of the kids that go there, and I know that some of the ones that are really close to me are safe, and they're in Leonardtown right now, and that makes me happy to know that they're okay.
Are you going to be at the march on Saturday?
I don't know, honestly, but I was part of the school walkout last week, but I don't know about the one on Saturday.
What else are you hearing from people you know at Great Mills?
I'm hearing that it was a domestic thing, that a girl broke up with a boy and that he wanted to attack her, but he didn't end up shooting her, though he shot somebody else. And then I heard that he killed himself, but I personally don't know what's true and what's not true.
Yeah, a lot of rumor going around at this point and hard to know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, go home, get warm, take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela.
Guys, there certainly is indeed a lot of rumor going around. We don't know quite for sure at all if this was a domestic situation, what the relation was with the shooter and another girl and that other guy. We don't even know if the gunman, him or herself, killed him or herself, or was engaged by that student resource officer and then eventually died from the round that the officer shot. But we're going to find out a lot more information when that 1 o'clock presser does happen, coming up in about an hour plus. So we still have a little bit of time. We're still watching and waiting. We're going to continue our news coverage on our air on our local Channel 5 if you are in the area. And we're here live on our YouTube channel, guys. You're watching our Fox 5 Live digital stream. We're live. We're in the newsroom. People are switching up shifts, so people are coming in and out. And it is quite a chaotic day this morning because we're trying to effort all this information for you guys. I want to show you a quick tweet from our anchor who's upstairs holding it down, Steve Chenevy, retweeting what the sheriff just said. He said, "This is what we trained for, but on this day we realized our worst nightmare." St. Mary County's Sheriff Tim Cameron. Like I mentioned, Tim Cameron getting quite emotional at the end of that press conference saying that he will be brief but will offer more details, more question and answer session at that 1 o'clock press conference. So we're keeping an eye on that and any other pieces of news that come in for you guys. Unfortunately, our cameras have sort of stalled out here, but we are going to continue on with the news and some other top stories of the day. We'll be right back. All right, guys, I want to make sure you know that we are still with you here in the DC newsroom. So if you're on with us, thanks for joining us on our stream. We're live here on YouTube on our digital channel, bringing you the latest on the Great Mills High School shooting from this morning. Now, the sheriff just spoke officially. It was a very brief statement. He'll have more questions and answers at 1 o'clock Eastern time, so we're going to make sure we bring that to you live. But I want to recap and show you a little bit of the interviews from this morning that were quite compelling that we shared on our air. If you saw the girl earlier being interviewed by Melanie, she was offering some words on her emotions in the moment that she knew the girl, one of the girls, the female actually, who was in critical condition after being shot. And she mentioned the March for Our Lives, which is this Saturday, the 24th. We're going to be doing a very special digital coverage of that here on Fox 5 Live. So if you have not yet joined us, please do subscribe to our channel. We're going to be covering all of this all week long. And we'll be tracking everything that's going on Saturday. Multiple cameras down on the National Mall in DC here, talking to people, bringing in interviews, having live aerials, footage of this march that is slated to bring hundreds of thousands, if not 500,000 plus or so, high school students to the DC area to march in support of change, a la gun violence in Congress. We've heard about this for weeks. We've been seeing the outcry from students, and now we even saw Great Mills was one of the high schools that participated in the student walkout last week. So we're going to continue this whole story. We're going to track that march on Saturday. But I want to show you briefly an interview with one young woman who was involved. She was at the school. She is a student there. And we had this on our TV air earlier. I want to play it out for you before we kind of replay some of the sheriff's words from earlier and then continue to monitor this scene. Unfortunately, the only camera shot I have right now for you is this. We are up and running. We're there tracking this. We have a lot of cameras there, but fortunately, they're kind of on the run. Not a lot of people staged and ready to talk. So we will be waiting that out for more information. We're staying on our air though, so if you are in the area, local Channel 5, you're going to pop it on. We're going to stay on for hours to come, probably definitely through the sheriff's press conference at 1 o'clock. But for now, earlier, this was the interview with a young lady, a student at the school shooting. She was there. She had a few comments to say on witnessing this event. You'll see our anchor, Steve and Allison, talking to her over the air. This was earlier this morning.
What can you tell us about what you know?
Yes, I had pulled into my parking spot around like 7:57, and as soon as I walked out of my car, I saw students running out, screaming and yelling frantically. So I immediately got back into my car and called my mom and told her what was going on. And I saw my friend while I was about to leave, and he was telling me that there's a school shooter at the school. So I just went home and my friend I texted, and she told me that the shooting happened right outside of our first period class. So I'm just I was just shaking because I didn't know how to react to that. It's just crazy that it's happening in our own neighborhood town where we grew up, and it's just crazy to me.
Javon, tell us about your school. Tell us about Great Mills. You said you were surprised. I mean, I know this is very early, but tell us about your school community.
Yeah, Great Mills is just a loving school. Our principal, he's always down to earth. He loves his students, very involved with us, and we're just like a family all the time. And it's very diverse. That's why I love it so much. Very active, and I just love it there.
Javon, I want to ask, I know it's been quite a traumatic morning for you. It's been only an hour and 15 minutes or so since you first pulled up to school and then had to leave so quickly. But in that time, have you been able to talk to a number of other students about what may have happened? And you did mention the shooting possibly outside of first period class. Is that inside the school, or would it have been outside of the school?
Inside the school.
Okay, and have you had a chance to talk with other students that filled in any more blanks as to what might have happened?
No, I haven't gotten the full story of what happened. I just heard different
Javon, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. How are you feeling? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Just shaken up.
No, I'm sure. It's absolutely something to be incredibly shaken about, which I think lends to the narrative of, the whole movement as to feeling safe in schools. And I know that's been a hot topic lately. We said we don't want to get political with this, Siobhan, but you know, your feelings as to now that this happens in your school and impacts yourself and your friends. Does it scare you? Does it frighten you? Do you feel secure in the school?
Yes, we really need gun control because this is just not acceptable for us.
What year are you, Siobhan? What?
I'm class of 2018. I'm graduating in June.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. We do thank you for joining us. We know it's a difficult morning, but we appreciate the firsthand account. We really do.
Oh.
If he does that, we're walking over. Chris, and then we'll come again. Chris is going to speak to you first. Thank you, sir. Max, what's that? Yeah, but we're live on TV. Are you going to be live? I'm doing it quick. You guys like 20. I'm not doing it.
All right, guys, once again, live pictures of Bob Barnard and his camera crew there on scene where the sheriff just spoke very briefly about the incident in Great Mills at Great Mills High School this morning. We're going to kind of keep it on his camera because he has, I know he's sort of walking around trying to figure it out, but we're going to take him live whenever he comes up and throws back to air here in the studio. But I want to briefly replay just a very short few minutes from the sheriff this morning, his official update on that shooting, the details all included in there. And it's the latest that we have. No questions were able to be asked, but he was able to sort of enumerate a few more details to let the media know what exactly was going on at this shooting this morning. Another very tragic event seen in the St. Mary's County Public School in Southern Maryland. So let's play that out for you guys, and then we'll jump back to this live camera to get you sort of in the loop of what's going on. You can see reporters, other people in the media there getting ready for what's coming up in, I believe, about an hour. So there's still a bunch of time before people get settled and really are able to ask all their questions about this morning's incident. This is what he had to say, Sheriff Tim Cameron from St. Mary's County earlier this morning.
More detailed press conference, as detailed as we possibly can be. So if you can all refrain and hold your questions until then, that would be appreciated. And now I will go ahead and call up Sheriff Tim Cameron.
Good morning. What we know thus far is that Great Mills High School began its school day this morning at 7:45 a.m. like many other days, except for on this day, a male student produced a handgun and fired around, wounding a female student and another male student in a hallway of Great Mills High School just before classes begun. The victims of the shooting were transported by EMS, and the one male student went to MedStar St. Mary's Hospital, is in stable condition. The female student was transported to shock trauma facility, is in critical condition. And I am told that at 10:41 a.m. this morning, the shooter was confirmed deceased at Charles Regional Medical Center in La Plata. When the shooting took place, our school resource officer, who was stationed inside the school, was alerted to the event and the shots being fired. He pursued the shooter, engaged the shooter, during which that engagement he fired a round at the shooter. Simultaneously, the shooter fired a round as well. So in the hours to come, in the days to come, through detailed investigation, we will be able to determine if our school resource officer's round struck the shooter. The school resource officer is uninjured and was not struck by any firearm projectile. The SRO is with our detectives now, as are witnesses to the event. They are still at the high school in a secured area. The remainder of the students from Great Mills High School, as our protocol and process and training, we brought buses in and had them removed to the Forest Tech Center in Leonardtown for parent reunification. That is ongoing as we speak. I would like to thank my colleagues from the allied agencies that responded. It was a mass response this morning from Police, Fire, and Rescue. Charles County Sheriff's Office, thank you, Troy Berry. Major Morris, thank you. The Maryland State Police responded, as did the NAS Police, Calvert County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and the ATF. At 1 o'clock, I hope to give you more details about this event. I know that you have a number of questions, and I'm alerted to a number of things that are out there on social media about the potential relationship between the shooter and any of the victims. At this time, we can't confirm any of that. That is what this investigation will do. And at 1 o'clock, I would anticipate being able to release identities of...
You guys, I'm going to break into this replay of this press conference from earlier because we have some live video coming in from Melanie, who seems to be interviewing some students on the street. Check it out.
Every day he gets on the bus, I worry, especially in this world today. So it was scary.
So you didn't want to leave him in school?
No. Well, he's in tech class.
Oh, got it.
And they're using the tech center for the Great Mill students. So, but I just wanted him to be with me.
And spell your last name for me so we have it.
Spindler.
We're so glad you guys are safe.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Justin, this way.
Can we talk to you real quick?
Yeah.
What's your name?
My name is Wes Scriber.
Spell it for me.
Scriber, Wes, W-E-S-L-E-Y. And Scriber, S-C-R-I-B-E-R.
Okay. Is your student at the tech school or was your student at Great Mills?
I got one at the Tech Center and one at Great Mills.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so I got two of them.
What did you hear from your student at Great Mills today?
I just heard that it was a shooting and to come here to get my kids.
And a son or daughter at Great Mills?
Got two daughters.
At Great Mills?
Great Mills.
Did they reach out to you at all, or?
No, I haven't gotten in contact with them yet.
How does that feel?
I'm kind of shaking. I feel terrible, man. I gotta go get him. I gotta see him. So I'm going to see him.
Did you ever think this would happen here?
No, not down here. I never thought it was happening. But right now, my main concern is my kid.
Go get him.
I'm going right now. I'm going right now.
Okay, Wes.
Okay, then.
All right, guys, meanwhile, let's flash over to Bob Barnard's camera. He's with House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer. It's his district where this all happened. Let's listen in.
Past week, and I saw you spoke. You've had students from around the district come to Washington to beg for you guys to do something, for the president to do something. This weekend, children from around the country, school children, are going to be coming to Washington. And then this happens in your district. First of all, your reaction to what happened this morning.
Well, saddened for those who were involved, obviously, and the children who either lost their lives or are very badly injured. Angry that we continue to hear about these incidents. 21 this year alone in schools. That's about 2 a week, and we do not take action. We lament, we sympathize, we empathize, we have moments of silence, but we don't have action. What the people want, what these students want that are marching this weekend and who are on the west front of the Capitol last week, they want to see action. They want to see some effective policies adopted which will make them safer in their schools. And of course, the general public safer in the concert venues that they go to, as happened in Las Vegas, or the churches they go to, as happened in Texas and in Charleston, or safer in the nightclub, as happened in Orlando, Florida. We see this happening over and over and over again, and we wring our hands.
What's your answer to
wringing our hands is not enough. We ought to pass comprehensive background checks, which could at least try to make sure that people don't get guns who, when they have them, are a danger to themselves or a danger to others, either because they have criminal records, because they have mental health problems, they've abused their spouse, they're on a terrorist watch list. 97% of the American people says, that makes sense. That makes sense to make my child safer, me safe, make our communities safer. Yet we can't get it on the floor for a vote. Saying that it is simply time to pray and reflect, those are appropriate, but they're not enough.
Is there an answer for the young people watching who will see this interview later? We're live, but and a lot of young people are in school.
Yeah.
But you know, they don't blame Republican, Democrat. They blame the lawmakers.
Yes.
Is there a reason why it doesn't happen? I mean, you're a student of it for a very long time. For those watching and wonder why it doesn't happen, why?
Well, let me say that we passed in 1994 an assault weapon bill, which expired in 2004. Republicans were in charge, and they did not put reauthorization on the floor. And if it's not on the floor, you can't vote for it. But I agree with you. Young people don't care about Democratic or Republican. This is not a partisan issue. These kids are not being targeted because of their political affiliation. They're being targeted because they're aggregated in schools, or aggregated in a concert venue, or aggregated in a church. In other words, there are large numbers of people together. And in many of these instances, it is to make some sort of point or express some sort of anger, or and too often it's a result of a mental illness. We need action. Just lamenting these facts is not enough. And these young people are saying, do something. And I'm hopeful that these young people make a difference, and we will, in fact, do something.
Will this weekend make a difference?
I think this weekend will make a difference. I think what the kids at Parkland have done has made a difference. They're so articulate, they're so committed, and people hear them and say to themselves, that makes sense. That young person is talking sense. And our lawmakers, not on a political sense, but our lawmakers ought to act. We can't even get the CDC authorized to do a study as to why this is happening.
Study of gun violence.
Study of gun violence, and which would include, of course, how we make our society safer. I mean, of course, they studied disease, but kids are being killed as a result of guns. Yes, disease we need to study. We need to try to intervene and make people safer from disease. But clearly, we all also do the same thing when it comes to gun violence, which is epidemic in our country.
We don't know the motivation behind this one today. Have you learned anything from speaking with anyone that you could share with us yet?
No, I think the sheriff indicated, the Sheriff Tim Cameron indicated he's going to give a more comprehensive briefing at 1 o'clock. But I think, we're talking now 5 hours. So I don't think we know the motivation. There's suspicion. I'm not going to talk about suspicion. We don't know
whether someone was targeted or whether it was a random type of thing.
We don't know any of those facts. We don't know anything about how the shooter got the gun. All of those facts will come out. But what we have absolute knowledge of is that people getting guns and using them to kill people are lethal. Well, obviously that's redundant, but and that we have a responsibility, and that's what these young people say. Try to help us. Young man who was a member of the school board in Montgomery County gave a speech last week with those thousands of other young people there, and one of the things he said that struck me so much, said, I understand there's a constitutional right to own a gun, but I have a constitutional right to live. I have a constitutional right to live. And we have, frankly, a constitutional responsibility to make sure that his chances of doing so are greater by advancing common sense gun safety legislation. Let's hope we do that.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, guys, we're going to flip right over to Melanie's camera. She's interviewing some people on the street about the shooting this morning, whether they're parents or students that are reacting to this morning's events. Check it out right here.
Did you happen to hear any names? I mean, we wouldn't say it. We just have to confirm it.
There was a bunch of rumors about. All right.
Okay. All right. That's fine. we have to ask just in case, and certainly we would then check it out and confirm it ourselves. But I understand. But thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry. We're never getting out of here.
You got Boyer earlier. They're still trying to get me an IFB, so hold on a second. Ashley, if you can put me through, I can listen to this earphone. So can you put me through the IFB system? You got it, Doug?
And here we are. We have the mark.
If anybody's listening in the booth, it's Matt.
Let me just give you the minimum that needs to be done. Anything short of this would be unacceptable. Universal background. Current system, we need to make sure that those that are not entitled to have a bioweapon are not able to buy a weapon. Secondly, the military-style weapons and equipment need to be off of individual ownership. So that's the assault weapons, that's the large capacity magazines. Those types of weapons should be banned in this country. That's the minimum.
Yes, just go. This is Senator Cardin. You can send right to him.
But arming school teachers is a non-starter. We don't want to bring more guns into our schools.
And do you believe, your students here at Great Mills participated in the walkout, as did thousands of students across the country? Now we've got the march this weekend. Do you believe that these students will make a difference in achieving something?
Well, students are participating, and more have had a personal experience, like we see here at Great Mills. It's tragic. And these students are just literally not taking no for an answer. They know that action is needed. So, yes, I think Saturday will make a difference. I think what happened last Wednesday on Capitol Hill made a difference. I think the walkout has made a difference. I think Americans are listening to our young people and their demand that adults act as adults and keep them safe.
Is the president listening?
Well, the president certainly follows cable news. I've been told about that.
Senator, we're just joining you now live on air. Can you first give us your reaction to this morning, please?
Well, it's shock, anger, just frustration that now it happened in Maryland, that we had a shooting in our own state, and that we need to act. That our students are demanding safety in their schools. They have a right to expect safety in our schools, and they have a right to expect that their adults will act as adults and keep them safe. So there's no one answer, but we know common sense gun safety legislation will certainly save lives. We know that trying to protect our school buildings themselves with resource officers makes a difference. We know investing in mental health is smart to identify people with problems earlier, can help them and help us. So there's a lot of things we can do, but doing nothing is unacceptable.
Do you believe you can get your Republican colleagues to agree with you and get something done?
I can tell you that Americans are listening to our students, are listening to common sense actions. The last poll I saw, I thought it was like 80 or 90% of Americans want us to take action. I think our political system will respond.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Ben Cardin joining us now. Senator, can I get you over to the side just real quick because we're live on the air? Can I come over here because we got you? So I'm wondering about you. Were you at the Capitol building this morning as well? I know Congressman Hoyer came down. How did you first hear about this?
I was giving a speech in Washington to a group of people that are interested in water infrastructure, and I learned about it. And I immediately checked to see how we could work as a state team to show our support for the people of Southern Maryland, and felt that it was important for me to physically be here to show that support.
Senator, so many people are heading to the Washington, D.C. area from all over the country this weekend. Do you hope that actually accomplishes it? Will you be with those folks as they march? And what do you think it will do?
Well, I will be there with members of my family to show solidarity with the students, with their requests that there be safety in their schools and that Congress takes action to enact federal laws to help make them safe. So yes, I will be there, and I do think it will make a difference. I think the energy that students have brought to this national debate will make a difference.
Senator Ben Cardin, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, guys, so I'm Matt Ackland joining you here. We're going to be here the rest of the afternoon. You can see officials are setting up now. They are going to have a press conference right around 1 o'clock, at least that's what we're hearing. A lot of media from all over is gathering here in St. Mary's County. We hope to get some additional details. Congressman Hoyer is here, Senator Cardin. Don't see any other elected officials. I know there's some representatives from the FBI here as well. So we'll send it back to you guys in the studio for now and keep you updated throughout the afternoon.
Yeah, because I wasn't wearing them.
Good morning. What we know thus far is that Great Mills High School began its school day this morning at 7:45 a.m. like many other days, except for on this day, a male student produced a handgun and fired around, wounding a female student and another male student in a hallway of Great Mills High School just before classes begun. The victims of the shooting were transported by EMS, and the one male student went to MedStar St. Mary's Hospital, is in stable condition. The female student was transported to shock trauma facility, is in critical condition, and I am told that at 10:41 a.m. this morning, The shooter was confirmed deceased at Charles Regional Medical Center in La Plata. When the shooting took place, our school resource officer, who was stationed inside the school, was alerted to the event and the shots being fired. He pursued the shooter, engaged the shooter, during which that engagement he fired a round at the shooter. Simultaneously, the shooter fired a round as well. So in the hours to come, in the days to come, through detailed investigation, we will be able to determine if our school resource officer's round struck the shooter. The school resource officer is uninjured and was not struck by any firearm projectile. The SRO is with our detectives now, as are witnesses to the event. They are still at the high school in a secured area. The remainder of the students from Great Mills High School, as our protocol and process and training, we brought buses in and had them removed to the Forest Tech Center in Leonardtown for parent reunification. That is ongoing as we speak. I would like to thank my colleagues from the allied agencies that responded. It was a mass response this morning from Police, Fire, and Rescue. Charles County Sheriff's Office, thank you, Troy Berry. Major Morris, thank you. The Maryland State Police responded, as did the NAS Police, Calvert County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and the ATF. At 1 o'clock.
Boy, we talked to was just getting off the bus as all of this was going down. He heard a lot of rumors. He didn't want to believe it. Thought it was a lot of speculation. They ushered everyone into the cafeteria for that lockdown situation, and then certainly that long wait until everyone knew that they were safe and that they were okay. Now. We also talked to students who are being picked up by their parents who didn't go to Great Mills but happen to know people at Great Mills, and they are very shaken up too. A lot of the parents picking up middle school students, picking up high school students, those kids say they just want to be home today. They just want to be with their parents because it's the kind of thing that they're just very, very rattled by, as you can imagine, as you can appreciate. So you're continuing to see throughout the last hour or so. We never saw the buses come in here, but we know that the students are in the school here, and so their parents continuing to park. The weather is miserable. Some parents carrying much smaller children having to make their way into the cafeteria area here at the Career and Technology Center in order to get their kids. And then some of the students really just also, we're not going to go into it, but the kids have been talking about what perhaps the relationship may have been between the shooter, what his motivation may have been with some of those other students, and a lot of it, again, at this point, the kind of things that kids know what's going on in their school, but we're hesitant to say too much about it because we really just want to wait and get that information confirmed by the authorities here at St. Mary's County while they continue their investigation. But just a very, very difficult day here for everybody. They're just trying to get their kids home and get them into that place where they feel like they can just kind of let it all go in a very safe environment, their safe home with their families. For now, I'm Melanie Alnwick, live in St. Mary's County. Jim and Maureen, back to you guys. I would say people here are pretty calm. I haven't seen any parents here as they've been talking to us. The parents have been fine. They've been allowing their students to share their feelings with us. They're just really, I guess there is that sense of relief and not too much anger here yet, but certainly just disappointment, frustration, and just talking to some of the students, they really are just almost despondent over the situation, just feeling like they can't believe that this is the kind of an environment, this is the kind of situation that they are growing up in, that they're having to deal with in a place that for frankly, when you and I and people of our generation were growing up, it really just wasn't even a thought. It wasn't even on our radar. So I think the students, for the most part, they're the ones that are really feeling like they're most impacted by this and most motivated, frankly, to try to do something about it. Okay, well, let's figure that out quickly because Paul Wagner's here to switch out with us and we got to dig out our truck.
All right, guys, if you are still on with us, thanks for joining us on our live coverage here at Fox 5 Live inside Fox 5 DC's newsroom. We're continuing to show you all these scenes in Great Mills, Maryland area, both outside in the cold, rainy weather and inside where the staging area here is for the sheriff to give his official press conference at 1 o'clock Eastern time. That's what we're going to have coming up next. Meanwhile, I do want to finish out what the sheriff had to say earlier this morning in some brief remarks. It was very short, but he was able to say that he will be taking questions at this second session. But for now, we have a couple cameras on the scene. That's what you're looking at, these live pictures here of students getting picked up and leaving. And just some exterior shots as well at the medical centers where some of the victims were transported. I believe this one is MedStar Health, where the male victim was transported, the one who purportedly was, I believe, shot somewhere on his body but did survive, and he is there, was transported after being shot. So we have a couple different cameras here, guys. We're going to play out Sheriff's words from earlier this morning once more, and then we'll go inside the room where he will give his official remarks coming up at 1 o'clock. Here's the sheriff from earlier.
This morning, the shooter was confirmed deceased at Charles Regional Medical Center in Plata. When the shooting took place, our school resource officer, who was stationed inside the school, was alerted to the event and the shots being fired. He pursued the shooter, engaged the shooter, during which that engagement he fired a round at the shooter. Simultaneously, the shooter fired a round as well. So in the hours to come, in the days to come, through detailed investigation, we will be able to determine if our school resource officer's round struck the shooter. The school resource officer is uninjured and was not struck by any firearm projectile. The SRO is with our detectives now, as are witnesses to the event. They are still at the high school in a secured area. The remainder of the students from Great Mills High School, as our protocol and process and training, we brought buses in and had them removed to the Forest Tech Center in Leonardtown for parent reunification. That is ongoing as we speak. I would like to thank my colleagues from the allied agencies that responded. It was a mass response this morning from Police, Fire, and Rescue. Charles County Sheriff's Office, thank you, Troy Berry. Major Morris, thank you. The Maryland State Police responded, as did the NAS Police, Calvert County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and the ATF. At 1 o'clock, I hope to give you more details about this event. I know that you have a number of questions, and I'm alerted to a number of things that are out there on social media about the potential relationship between the shooter and any of the victims. At this time, we can't confirm any of that. That is what this investigation will do. And at 1 o'clock, I would anticipate being able to release identities of perhaps the shooter and the victims as well. And we would know by then that notification is being made. So again, I wanted to lay the groundwork for what's to come at 1 o'clock.
Can you confirm the identity of the school resource officer?
No, I can't. Not at this time.
There have been threats posted on social media a month or two ago at this school. Can you say anything about if any of what happened today was related to that?
So that's part and parcel to the investigation. We'll go on to determine if anything on social media was relevant to this day. I'm not aware of anything, but again, we're going to go back and comb through that, as well as anybody involved, their social media posts.
How many resource officers are for the school?
We have a school resource officer assigned to each of our high schools.
One?
Yes, yes.
Again, we're not taking questions right now at 1 o'clock. I appreciate it. Thank
I
you.
would like to mention that the FBI has set up a 1-800 line. It's 1-800-CALL-FBI. If you have additional information that you would like to share with us, we set that 800 line up, so please give us a call there. I'll see you all again at 1 o'clock. Thank you all very much.
Sure. From what you know right now, can you just speak at all a little bit broadly about the
So guys, of course, that press conference that he's mentioning is the one that you see now in the left corner of your screen, right there, that small picture. We're going to bring it up full screen, and we're going to have that coming up next for you within the next half hour. It's coming up very shortly. A more detailed press conference from the Sheriff Tim Cameron, and others. You can see there, they're already kind of gathering together at that staging area. You can see the media in the room. This is our camera angle and our reporter, Matt Ackland, who is there. We're going to make sure we pull that in live at 1 o'clock Eastern time. So that's coming up very, very shortly. Until then, if we have any other breaking news, guys, or pictures to bring to you, we will. Couple of live looks right now, like I showed you earlier, outside the medical center, that one possibly of the victims of that shooting has been transported to. We know that there is a female in critical condition, a male who was also shot and did live, and that the gunman was pronounced dead at 10:41 a.m. So some details further to be flushed out at this press conference that is coming up very shortly. We're going to leave our live camera there for you. If you do have any questions or thoughts or anything that you want to bring to us, let us know in the live chat. We're right here watching with you, and we're going to try to bring you the latest via tweets and whatnot. Quickly, to bring to your attention, I wanted to mention Governor Larry Hogan. He had a statement earlier. He issued the following statement on the shooting. Governor of Maryland there saying that it took place, and as it remains this active investigation, police are on the scene. He expressed his deep gratitude to the Sheriff's Office and the first responders who took action, and he and his wife said that they are praying for those who are injured, family and loved ones. Again, that's Republican Governor of Maryland reacting to this event this morning. We also heard from House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer, who was there, his district, and Senator Ben Cardin, who came to the scene as well, and he had some comments for some of our reporters who were there earlier. For now, let's flash back into the press conference room, guys. Matt Ackland is there. Let's listen in.
Steny Hoyer, this is his district. He was coming down. Apparently both of them, Jim, were in the district when they heard about this news and decided to travel here. As you were saying earlier, there is a press conference scheduled to take place. Probably, it looks like about 32 minutes. You know, that can be on time, or we might have to wait a bit. But we are hoping to hear a bit more from the FBI, also the sheriff, who we heard from, I'd say about a half hour ago, Sheriff Tim Cameron here of St. Mary's County. He said earlier that he had hoped to bring additional details on exactly what took place at that school this morning. Just some things that I wrote down as Steny Hoyer, the congressman, was talking today of what he said as he was being interviewed. You know, he said he was sickened by this. He was sad, angry, and shocked. He says something has to be done to stem this epidemic. Really sad for the parents who are involved in this, and also believes that this is another example of why we need a call for action. He says this is a call for action. Support some kind of comprehensive background checks. You probably heard Senator Cardin speak about that as well. And then I asked him, well, will your Republican colleagues agree to that? And he really didn't focus on that directly, but had hoped that Congress as a whole could come together, could listen to so many people across the country, especially since the incident at Parkland High School, that terrible shooting there, and then what's happening this morning. Hopefully something can be done. Also, the senator said that he will be there in Washington, D.C. this weekend. As we all know, the big march is planned for Saturday. As many as 1 million people are expected to come to Washington, D.C. to protest and protest that something be done to stop the violence, the gun violence, the violence at schools. So once again, here, this is a community center not too far away from the school. You might be able to see the podium here behind me. There are a lot of officials here, representatives from the FBI, of course, representatives from the local county government here. The sheriff, I haven't seen him since I walked in, but I'm sure he'll be briefing us more on some of the things that happened this morning. And I know we've been running this soundbite, but I think a lot of people are talking about what the sheriff said this morning. This is what we train for, this is what we prepare for, and this is what we pray that we never have to do. And on this day, we realized our worst nightmare. referring to the incident that happened at the school, which is nearby. So we'll definitely keep you updated, Jim and Maureen, and let you know just as soon as that press conference gets underway here in St. Mary's County. I'll send it back to you now. Let me know. Thanks.
So that is Matt Ackland inside that community center where that press conference will take place at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Guys, we're getting up to that hour very shortly. It's in just about a half hour here. I want to quickly show you the tweet from Steny Hoyer. He will be joining the sheriff for that press conference on the shooting coming up at 1. So we will hear from some lawmakers there as well. For now, we're going to take you back into that room, and we'll push out that press conference when it becomes available.
So I think we're just kind of in standby. Okay. Chris said they're keeping that. Can you hear? Okay. Hey, Doug, you may get the key to your car. I'm going to go get my charger from my car. Is online. It is. Okay. I'll be right back. I can go ahead and get it for you. I know it's a white cord and the white cord in the back. It's in the back seat. It's just a white charger cord. Okay. Brother, how you doing? You're live again, sir? Yeah, nice job getting down here and everything. I know, especially because you're already past your getting off. Oh, that's my camera was completely fogged up. That's what happens, right? Like when it's this kind of weather. Not outside, come inside, and it's fogged up. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure you all had everything from me. If you can send me a better photographer, that'd be great. I'm kidding. I love it. Please know, if you were standing here, I would say that louder. I know that. No.
Kids are each given as a check-in, a sticker that says who they are, and then parents have to bring ID in order to meet back up with them and reunite and then get them out here. We talked to some parents who still hadn't gotten word that their students were here yet, so they were a little nervous about that. We talked to kids about their feelings this morning, and as you can imagine, you're going to hear from parents and students right now just about how shaken up they are about this entire event. And then we also talked to and we've been keeping our eyes out for Wes there to see if he's reunited with his kids and you know what their plans are for the day. We talked to one girl earlier who goes to school at Leonardtown, but knows people at Great Mills and apparently knows one of the girls involved in all of this. So she literally, as soon as she saw her mom, she said that's when she completely broke down, just knowing that she was finally in a safe place emotionally. I want to bring in Paul Wagner now, who also just got some firsthand information from a student.
Talked to a student, 11th grader. His name is Tyreke Wheeler. We talked to him on camera. We haven't been able to turn that sound around just yet, but what he told me was that he was in the hallway. He says he was kind of walking along. He says, and all of a sudden he realized that it wasn't normal. It was not the normal activity that you usually see. And then all of a sudden he says he heard a gunshot, and he ran. and he ran into his classroom. He says his teacher got everybody into the classroom. They locked the doors. He says at that point, everybody inside was very frightened, very worried, very concerned. They had their phones out. They were texting their parents, trying to find out what was going on. He says there was a period of time where they stayed inside the classroom. He says then the police came to the classroom, got them out, and brought them to the auditorium. His mom was with him. She said she'd been trying to reach him. He was able to get his grandmother first, and then she got in touch with the mother. She works over at Patuxent Naval Air Station. She said she was so overjoyed to see him in person a few minutes ago that she just was grabbing him, hugging him, and kissing him. So people here are just obviously very emotional about what happened here. Also talked to another student off camera who just quickly told me that he was in the hallway. He saw the gunman, he heard the shot, and he just ran. He took off running. And then that was all I could get out of him, and he crossed the street. But those are the basic details we're getting right now. That apparently this was happening just as school was getting underway this morning. Tyreke Wheeler also told me that he knows the student who was shot in the leg. Says he gave me a first name, and I'm not going to repeat that right now, but he said that he's a well-known kid. He plays sports. It's unclear as to how this all ties in, whether or not he was a target of the shooting, or whether or not he just happened to get shot as he was walking by. So,
And did he have any inkling of who the shooter may have been?
he only described him as a white male. He says he didn't know him. I asked him specifically about the school resource officer because we've been told that the school resource officer was the hero here.
A well-known guy.
And he says he didn't know the school resource officer.
Right.
So I was trying to get some more information on that, but that we're still working on that.
Sure,
A little
and
bit.
more information, of course, will develop, and Paul's going to continue to be working that angle as well. But it's the kind of thing that we heard even on through our communications with kids on social media, saying that they heard either a popping sound or a loud noise, and they didn't quite know what it was, and then they were all told to shelter in place. And I think the thing that you realize is they look to the teachers for the cues, right? And so when they saw their teachers coming into the classroom with sort of that pale and frightened but trying not to be scared look on their face, that's when they knew that this was a really serious situation and a real situation. So
one other thing I'll tell you that Tyreke told me is that I don't know if we reported this, but the students took part in that walkout to be in solidarity with the Parkland kids, and he said that he took part in that, and he says, I never thought it would happen here, and here it is, it happened a week later.
Right, and you and I cover the police beats a lot, and this is a place where we don't come very often.
No, not the same area as county, no.
Right, things are
Rarely come
pretty
down.
quiet here. And also we saw on social media when the students were posting on Twitter what was happening here at their school, then students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas were tweeting back to them. And this whole community of people on social media saying, we're with you, we're praying with you, please stay safe. That was a pretty incredible moment. As much as it was on social media, it was still the world and the nation putting their hands around them, letting them know, you're not alone here in your school. We are all with you. Please let us know you're safe. So that's the latest from here. We're going to send it back to you guys, and certainly I know Paul is going to be taking over for me here at the high school scene, and it's going to be a long day for everybody, but hopefully we'll get all of the information that we need soon. Back to you guys. No, I mean, that's the thing, you know, students and I think the parents are probably pretty smart. When we talk to some of the students, we try to ask them, hey, look, can you give us some information? We'd like to just try to research this on their own. They're being pretty tight-lipped about names. Great, thank you.
All right, guys, so Fox 5's Melanie Alnwick switching out there with Paul Wagner. He's going to be there on the scene in this cold, rainy, chaotic morning, still following and watching this Great Mills High School shooting. Guys, we have the scene, the shot up right there in the left corner of your screen. Let's bring it full picture of where the sheriff will be speaking in his full press conference coming up very, very shortly at 1 o'clock. But I want to go back to some of the lawmakers who spoke to our reporters, Bob Barnard. He was Steny Hoyer, the House Minority Whip, was able to speak and gave somewhat of a lengthy interview about his feelings about all of this. Let's go back to some of that from just a few moments ago. Here are some of the lawmakers that we caught up with this morning.
81 Congressman Hoyer, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
In the past week, you've had, and I saw you spoke, you've had students from around the district come to Washington to beg for you guys to do something, for the president to do something. This weekend, children from around the country, school children, are going to be coming to Washington, and then this happens in your district. First of all, your reaction to what happened this morning.
Well, saddened for those who were involved, obviously, and the children who either lost their lives or are very badly injured. Angry that we continue to hear about these incidents. 21 this year alone in schools. That's about 2 a week, and we do not take action. We lament, we sympathize, we empathize, we have moments of silence, but we don't have action. What the people want, what these students want that are marching this weekend and who are on the west front of the Capitol last week, they want to see action. They want to see some effective policies adopted which will make them safer in their schools. And of course, the general public safer in the concert venues that they go to, as happened in Las Vegas, or the churches they go to, as happened in Texas and in Charleston, or safer in the nightclub, as happened in Orlando, Florida. We see this happening over and over and over again, and we wring our hands.
What's your answer to
wringing our hands is not enough. We ought to pass comprehensive background checks, which could at least try to make sure that people don't get guns who, when they have them, are a danger to themselves or a danger to others, either because they have criminal records, because they have mental health problems, they've abused their spouse, they're on a terrorist watch list. 97% of the American people says, that makes sense. That makes sense to make my child safer, me safe, make our communities safer. Yet we can't get it on the floor for a vote. Saying that it is simply time to pray and reflect, those are appropriate, but they're not enough.
Is there an answer for the young people watching who will see this interview later? We're live, and a lot of young people are in school.
Yeah.
But they don't blame Republican, Democrat. They blame the lawmakers.
Yes.
Is there a reason why it doesn't happen? I mean, you're a student of it for a very long time. For those watching who wonder why it doesn't happen, why?
Well, let me say that we passed in 1994 an assault weapon bill, which expired in 2004. The Republicans were in charge, and they did not put reauthorization on the floor. And if it's not on the floor, you can't vote for it. But I agree with you. Young people don't care about Democratic or Republican. This is not a partisan issue. These kids are not being targeted because of their political affiliation. They're being targeted because they're aggregated in schools, or aggregated in a concert venue, or aggregated in a church. In other words, there are large numbers of people together, and in many of these instances, it is to make some sort of point or express some sort of anger, or and too often it's a result of a mental illness. We need action. Just lamenting these facts is not enough. And these young people are saying, do something. And I'm hopeful that these young people make a difference, and we will, in fact, do something.
Will this weekend make a difference?
I think this weekend will make a difference. I think what the kids at Parkland have done has made a difference. They're so articulate. They're so committed. And people hear them and say to themselves, that makes sense. That young person is talking sense. And our lawmakers, not on a political sense, but our lawmakers ought to act. We can't even get the CDC authorized to do a study as to why this is happening.
Study of gun violence.
Study of gun violence, and which would include, of course, how we make our society safer. I mean, of course, they studied disease, but kids are being killed as a result of guns. Yes, disease we need to study. We need to try to intervene and make people safer from disease. But clearly we all also do the same thing when it comes to gun violence, which is epidemic in our country.
We don't know the motivation behind this one today. Have you learned anything from speaking with anyone that you could share with us yet?
No, I think the sheriff indicated, the Sheriff Tim Cameron indicated he's going to give a more comprehensive briefing at 1 o'clock. But I think, we're talking now 5 hours. So I don't think we know the motivation. There's suspicion. I'm not going to talk about suspicion. We don't know
whether someone was targeted or whether it was a random type of thing.
We don't know any of those facts. We don't know anything about how the shooter got the gun. All of those facts will come out. But what we have absolute knowledge of is that people getting guns and using them to kill people are lethal. Well, obviously that's redundant, but and that we have a responsibility, and that's what these young people say. Try to help us. Young man who is a member of
Rolling out of that interview, guys, with Rep. Steny Hoyer, let's go to Matt Ackland, who is reporting back to our on-camera broadcast right now. Here's what he is saying.
Command center at an FOP location, and he's getting briefed by the officials on exactly what took place today. I asked his press person if he was going to speak. We were just told that he would be here, so I'm sure the governor is going to speak after those law enforcement officials give us a briefing on this. So we have a lot of public officials here today. If you've just joined us, we talked to Congressman Steny Hoyer, who drove down from the Capitol. Also, Senator Ben Cardin arrived here. We haven't seen them here in the community center for the last 10 minutes, but we suspect they're probably somewhere in a back room, and then they'll all come together at this planned 1 o'clock briefing. It's still being scheduled for 1 o'clock, but once again, the governor is on scene. He's somewhere here close. We were told he hasn't arrived here at the building, but he will be a part of this press conference. So that's the very latest. A lot of cameras. It's hard for you to see, but we notice here, if we turn, you can see just the media presence here. Media from all over the area. The networks are in place. A lot of people interested in this big story. So hopefully we'll be able to bring you some brand new information coming up at that 1 o'clock press conference. Back to you in the studio. Jim, I have to be honest with you, we drove right here to this location. I believe it's not too far away from here, but I can't be certain because I didn't go to the school. I should check that for you. Forgive me for not knowing, but from what I've been talking to some other folks, it's not too far away from here.
Okay. You don't have to worry about carrying it. Ma'am, you know you in front of my shot. I'm down here. It's gonna be on your shot.
You know what, Maureen? I've been hearing. Okay.
So that is Matt Ackland, our Fox 5 DC reporter. Matt Ackland inside the community center just a few miles down the road from where that high school shooting took place. You can see the stage is being set behind him for that official press conference where hopefully a lot of these details that we are still questioning will be resolved. Social media has been rumoring a lot of things about some of the victims and about the shooter, but hopefully that will be resolved. As the sheriff mentioned earlier, they hope to name some of the victims and the shooter himself at this press conference, which is coming up very shortly. So until then, let's go back to one of these interviews from this morning. Earlier, Bob Barnard, who was also with Rep. Hoyer, he caught up with Senator Ben Cardin for air, and here were Senator Cardin's words about the shooting. He'll also be at this press conference coming up at 1.
Those that are not entitled to have a bioweapon are not able to buy a weapon. Secondly, the military-style weapons and equipment need to be off of individual ownership. So that's the assault weapons, that's the large capacity magazines. Those types of weapons should be banned in this country. That's the minimum.
Yes, just go. This is Senator Cardin. You can send right to him.
But arming school teachers is a non-starter. We don't want to bring more guns into our schools.
And do you believe, your students here at Great Mills participated in the walkout, as did thousands of students across the country? Now we've got the march this weekend. Do you believe that these students will make the difference in achieving something?
Well, students are participating, and more have had a personal experience, like we see here at Great Mills. It's tragic. And these students are just literally not taking no for an answer. They know that action is needed. So, yes, I think Saturday will make a difference. I think what happened last Wednesday on Capitol Hill made a difference. I think the walkout has made a difference. I think Americans are listening to our young people and their demand that adults act as adults and keep them safe.
Is the president listening?
Well, the president certainly follows cable news. I've been told about that.
Senator, we're just joining you now live on air. Can you first give us your reaction to this morning, please?
Well, it's shock, anger, just frustration that now it happened in Maryland, that we had a shooting in our own state, and that we need to act. That our students are demanding safety in their schools. They have a right to expect safety in our schools, and they have a right to expect that their adults will act as adults and keep them safe. So there's no one answer, but we know common sense gun safety legislation will certainly save lives. We know that trying to protect our school buildings themselves with resource officers makes a difference. We know investing in mental health is smart to identify people with problems earlier, can help them and help us. So there's a lot of things we can do, but doing nothing is unacceptable.
Do you believe you can get your Republican colleagues to agree with you and get something done?
I can tell you that Americans are listening to our students, are listening to common sense actions. Last poll I saw, I thought it was like 80 or 90% of Americans want us to take action. I think our political system will respond.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Ben Cardin joining us now. Senator, can I get you over to the side just real quick because we're live on the air? Can I come over here because we got you? So I'm wondering about you. Were you at the Capitol building this morning as well? I know
Yes.
Congressman Hoyer came down. How did you first hear about this?
I was giving a speech in Washington to a group of people that are interested in water infrastructure, and I learned about it. And I immediately checked to see how we could work as a state team to show our support for the people of Southern Maryland, and felt that it was important for me to physically be here to show that support.
Senator, so many people are heading to the Washington, D.C. area from all over the country this weekend. Do you hope that actually accomplishes it? Will you be with those folks as they march? What do you think it will do?
Well, I will be there with members of my family to show solidarity with the students, with their requests that there be safety in their schools and that Congress takes action to enact federal laws to help make them safe. So yes, I will be there, and I do think it will make a difference. I think the energy that students have brought to this national debate will make a difference.
Senator Ben Cardin, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, guys, so Matt Ackland joining you here. We're going to be here the rest of the afternoon. You can see officials are setting up now. They are going to have a press conference right around 1 o'clock, at least that's what we're hearing. A lot of media from all over is gathering here in St. Mary's County. We hope to get some additional details. Congressman Hoyer is here, Senator Cardin. Don't see any other elected officials. I know there's some representatives from the FBI here as well. So we'll send it back to you guys in the studio for now and keep you updated throughout the afternoon.
So again, guys, that was Matt Ackland earlier on in the day, and now you're looking at a live picture inside that community center where the press conference is going to take place, and we just saw Matt cross across the screen there. So I want to bring that up full picture and make sure we put the sound up for you so we don't miss a second of that. It is slated to start in about 4 or 5 minutes, and again, the official sheriff's press conference with all the details outlining more on today's shooting, hopefully giving some names, confirming some more information that we didn't know earlier this morning. So that is coming up next, guys. I'm going to bring that up. And if you have any questions or thoughts or comments, feel free to let us know in the live chat. We want to hear from you, especially if you're in this area. I know, Stewie, you were mentioning that you are a student at Great Mills, so definitely our heart goes out to you for today in this tragic event unfolding in Southern Maryland. Luckily, this was contained after a very short while, but the details are still, of course, trickling in, and a lot of rumors spreading on social media, so we want to make sure we expunge anything that may not be true, and I believe the sheriff will do that for us coming up very shortly. So let's bring this up. This is coming up in a few minutes, setting the stage here for Tim Cameron, the sheriff, as well as some of the lawmakers that are on hand to talk about this situation in Maryland.
WTGG on LC4, waiting on a newser for the Maryland school.
I love Maureen.
Anybody know the name of this one?
Do you need anything? No. Be safe, okay?
Let me know if I'm going to
Hey, I understand it. It's on my box. It's on the TV package for that. On the TV too. Exactly. Sure. That's no problem at all. Yep, perfect. Yeah, that works.
You two down in Charlestown? I'm in Brandy. Not that far. You know what the general or the officer school? My neighbor.
I thought I saw like coming and going. I'm like, what is causing it? Somebody hitting us. It's the drugs my sophomore year. Drugs in my sophomore year is causing it. Yeah. I don't know, but man, these lights are coming and going. These two lights right here, I don't know who they are, but who is this? I'm not sure. And they're matching. They both keep coming and going. And whose lights are these? They're cycling. They keep cycling. They're coming and going.
Does anyone have a full-way station?
No,
Four-way?
we should probably use them.
I've got a triple tap. Yeah. It's in that orange case and I'm about to go live.
Oh, beautiful. How are you?
Hey,
Good
how
to
are
see you.
you?
How's life?
I just had pizza. So.
Oh, that's okay.
How are you?
Okay. Good to see you. You keep having to cross into other counties to.
Come and help out where you can.
Yeah, I know.
So again, guys, this official press conference is slated to start very shortly here in this community center, just a few miles down the road from where this shooting happened. 2 students injured, 1 critically, and the gunman is reportedly dead. Hopefully we'll get some more information on who those people are, identifying the victims and the suspect, and what all really went down with that resource officer, that student resource officer, who apparently, according to the sheriff, exchanged some fire with the gunman. We'll get those hopefully all cleared up with this next press conference that will include a question and answer session, and we'll be watching along with you guys inside our newsroom. So here we go, guys. This is supposed to be starting very shortly. We'll make sure we get this right from the top. Thank you for joining us on our stream here in our digital newsroom at Fox 5.
Telling us that he believes it was likely the school resource officer who engaged the shooter.
Are we up? Okay. If
Now, the shooter was pronounced dead at a local hospital at 10:41 a.m. A little context here, it was just days ago that students in Great Mills walked out, as did thousands of students across the country, in advance of
Get ready.
March for our lives, certainly on the minds. And Rep. Cindy Hoyer, 1981, was one of the first on him.
No.
I
was just saying, get ready.
So, Harris, what we hope to hear in this press conference is a lot more details over what transpired, but obviously the headline and the good news here is that this was quickly over and that the school resource officer played some role in the suspect, and we're hoping also for not only the identity of the school resource officer, maybe the shooter, but an update on the conditions of the two students, one male, one female, who are here in the hospital. Harris? We don't know. We have to learn that. We know that it was a handgun, and as Senator Hoyer said, that if it wasn't an assault rifle in his class, it would have been worse. He would have obviously, he was making a play for an assault weapons ban. We heard similar from Senator Cardin, who's here on hand as well. Perhaps we'll hear from him at the conference. But just to give a little bit of context as well, it was just in the middle of February last month that in the neighboring school in Leonardtown here, just a few miles away, they pulled the case of a planned school shooting with two students and recovered some weapons. So it's hitting very close to home here.
Hello? Thank you. Appreciate it. We're going to stay up live on the air afterwards. They're going to go to all the Paul and Bob and then come to us here after the briefing.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us here on our Fox
Stations we are
5
told
DC
ELC2,
digital
the news
stream
that we've
here.
been
We can
waiting
see
on
the
for almost an
lawmakers
hour
starting to arrive.
is expected to
Governor
start
Larry
any minute
Hogan,
now.
Representative Steny
KTVC,
Hoyer,
if you
and
take it
Senator
live.
Cardin all slated to be part of this news conference, this official 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time news conference on the shooting this morning. Believes there is some action inside this community center room, so I believe it will be starting very shortly. But we want to thank you guys for hanging on to our stream here as we jump around with video content and tweets and all sorts of social media for you on this unfortunate, very tragic event at the Maryland High School, Great Mills High School this morning. Happened all in the 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock a.m. hour, and then we kind of rolled into coverage from there. But this is going to be the official word. We're hoping the sheriff will sort of detail some more of the names that we don't know yet, and some more questions will be answered about this shooting, very unfortunate event. 2 people, victims injured, transported to the hospital, and the gunman reported dead at 10:41 a.m. So those are the details we've been reading about, we've been looking into, and there will be hopefully an extensive Q&A section here for some of the media to ask their particular questions about that student resource officers who apparently engaged the shooter with gunfire, with a round, and we'll hopefully hear more details on what exactly happened with all of that, if that did apprehend the shooter or not, and then where we go from here, who the victims are, and where they are. I think I'll be jumping around to the video feeds from some of our reporters who are still out there in the field covering this, and so bear with us as we kind of loop this all in for you guys for some complete digital coverage on this event today. Thank you for hanging on with us, though. We'll be here in the newsroom watching with you as this all gets started very shortly.
Can I help you?
From Great Mills were brought to then to be reunited with their parents. And so for the last hour or so, we've been talking to a lot of the students and to the parents. And as you can imagine, they're telling some stories that just send chills down your spine, because if you're a parent and you're getting text messages from your child that suddenly that there's an active shooter in the school, you can imagine how they're feeling. We've talked to parents who said as soon as they were reunited with their child, they just hugged them and kissed them and just overjoyed to see that they were okay. I talked to one dad who drove up here and dropped off his 9th grader. Then he drove over to the Patuxent Naval Air Station where he works. He says suddenly he gets a text message from his son saying that there's an active shooter inside the school. The father was then texting back and forth with his son, wanted to make sure, are you okay? Where are you? The son was texting back saying, I'm inside the library. We think we're okay. The doors are locked and we can see police outside. We also talked with a couple of other students who say that they were in the library or in a media room, that they could also look outside and see that there were already sheriff's deputies here on the scene. We've talked to a couple of students who actually heard the gunshots. One I talked to actually saw the gunman and then took off running down the hallway and ran out of the school. I talked to another student who heard the gunshot, heard gunshots, then went into his classroom. He says his teacher got everybody inside, locked the door, tried to keep them calm, but at that point everybody's pulling out phones. They're texting their parents, texting friends, texting relatives, trying to find out what was going on and also to let them know that they were okay. This one student who was inside a classroom said that they weren't in there very long before all of a sudden armed officers appeared at the door, told them to go down to the auditorium, and then at that point they were taken out of the school. They were put on buses and brought over here to Leonardtown High School. Talked to a number of parents here who told me that there's got to be metal detectors put into these schools, that had there been a metal detector there this morning, that perhaps maybe this would not have happened. A number of these students told me that they know who one of the wounded students is, a 9th grader who plays football, very well-known kid, a male. We understand that male was shot in the leg. Apparently this student is very, very well-known at the high school, and everybody very concerned about them. They said they're saying prayers for him. A lot of people talking about prayers being sent out to the victims in this case, that they're thinking about them. Talked to one student who said that he was on lockdown inside the school. He was getting text messages from kids at Leonardtown High School who know him and said, "Are you okay? What's going on over there?" And so with this communication that we have these days with phones and technology and everybody being able to communicate via phones, that's apparently how a lot of this information was going around today. So that's a situation here at Leonardtown High School. We've talked to a lot of these kids. We'll be able to turn that around for you in later broadcasts. But that's the general gist of the explanations and the descriptions of what these kids were going through today at that high school. Back to you guys. Okay. Yeah.
So guys, that's the latest from Paul Wagner, who's out there in the field in that cold, rainy weather. We're going to jump back into this community center room where the press conference is supposed to begin. I think we're just about 10 or 15 minutes late right now, but it seems to be that they're gathering everyone together and they're starting to put their mics up and something seems to be happening. So let's bring this up full screen. We'll jump right into this press conference for you guys to see.
Yeah, you gotta come in from the south side. You gotta have to go. You gotta go. Nice car. You got yes, you got to go around and then come in. Basically, come in with the trailer park. Yeah, so you already got a mic just right. No, I don't. Pull up your map.
Here we go, here we go, here we go. Chris Van Hollen is also here.
Afternoon. Thank you all for being here. First and foremost, our thoughts and prayers are with all the victims of this, our staff, our students, and our entire community, Great Mills High School. At this time, Sheriff Cameron will be speaking, along with Governor Hogan will be speaking, as well as Dr. Smith, Superintendent for St. Mary's County Public Schools. After everyone's done speaking, there will be a few minutes for brief questions. And at this time, I would also ask if there is anyone that has any information on what happened today, to please call the hotline the FBI has set up. That number is 1-800-CALL-FBI. I'll turn it over now to Sheriff Tim Cameron.
Good afternoon. I'd like to reiterate that my thoughts and prayers are with the victims of today's shooting, the students and staff of Great Mills High School, and our community. I said this before and I will say it again. This is something that we train, practice, and in a reality we hope would never come to fruition. It is our worst nightmare. Today at approximately 7:55 a.m., Great Mills High School student Austin Wyatt Rollins, age 17, produced a handgun while in hallway F in Great Mills High School and shot a Great Mills High School student, a female who was 16, and a Great Mills High School student, a male who was 14. School resource officer, Deputy First Class Blaine Gaskell, was alerted and immediately responded and engaged the shooter. DFC Blaine Gaskell fired at the shooter, and what is described to me as almost simultaneously the shooter fired. First aid was immediately initiated by deputies, troopers, and school nursing staff to include a tourniquet placed on the shooting victim and CPR. There is an indication that a prior relationship existed between the shooter and the female victim. We are working as we speak to determine if that was, and if so, the extent of that, and if it was part of the motive for this shooting. We continue to interview witnesses, collect forensic evidence from multiple crime scenes, and examine the shooter's electronic devices and all aspects of social media and social media traffic. The 14-year-old male student was transported to MedStar St. Mary's Hospital, is in stable condition there. The 16-year-old female student was transported to PG shock trauma, and she is in ICU with life-threatening critical injuries. I would ask that anyone that has any information, please call the hotline that's been established, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Now I'd like to introduce the Governor of Maryland, Governor Larry Hogan. Governor, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being here today. First of all, I want to thank Sheriff Tim Cameron and his incredible team at the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Department, who responded in an incredible way with the support of law enforcement agencies from neighboring jurisdictions in Calvert County and Charles County, together with state police, and we've got ATF and FBI here. This has been a terrific joint effort. I also want to thank all of the first responders who did an incredible job, and I think everybody went above and beyond the call of duty in this particular incident. It's tragic. Our hearts are broken. We're extremely saddened, and our thoughts and prayers are always with the victims, all of the students and their families. No parent should ever have to worry about when they send their kids off in the morning to school, whether they're going to come home safely or not. And we need more than prayers. I want to thank these first responders and law enforcement officers for the job they did, but we need more. We've got to take action. We've got one of the most aggressive school safety plans in America that we introduced several weeks ago as emergency legislation in Annapolis. The legislature's failed to take action on it. We put $125 million into school safety, $50 million a year into additional school resource officers like the great deputy sheriff that saved further people from being injured and killed today. But not every school has that opportunity. And more mental health counselors. So it's a tragedy. We're going to continue to support law enforcement at every level. All of our first responders, we're going to be here for the community. We're going to be here for the families and the children at Great Mills High School. And we're going to try to get something done in Annapolis. We've only got less than 3 weeks left in the legislative session. And to me, it's outrageous that we haven't taken action yet on something so important as school safety. But we're going to fight to make sure it gets done, and we hope you will help us do that. Thank you.
Governor, gun violence has been at the top of your administration since you've been in office. What can you tell Marylanders to assure them that hopefully this will not happen again in a Maryland school?
Well, I wish I could tell you that it's not going to happen again. Unfortunately, I won't be able to give you that guarantee, but I know that we have legislation to make it tougher on anyone that commits a crime with a gun. I know we have legislation to make it tougher and longer sentences for people that are repeat violent offenders. And we've got, I'm supporting legislation for the red flag legislation to take the guns out of the hands of the mentally ill or people that are having issues. I've always said we've got to keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill and people with criminal records. And we need these school safety resources, but it's going to take everybody working together because nobody should ever have to, no community should ever have to go through this again.
Governor, do you think the way the school resource officer responded in this case would be an example for school districts across the country?
Well, we're just getting all the facts, but I had the opportunity to talk with Sheriff Cameron, and it sure sounds like this is exactly the way it should have been handled. Had a very capable school resources officer that also happened to be a SWAT team member. This is a tough guy who apparently closed in very quickly and took the right kind of action. And I think while it's still tragic, he may have saved other people's lives.
Excuse me, Dr. Smith, please.
Yep.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Dr. Scott Smith, Superintendent for St. Mary's County Public Schools.
It is fairly overwhelming, the response that we've had as a result of the incident this morning, and it's wonderful to be joined by so many people and to really engage in this conversation. What we had this morning is truly our worst fear, our parents' worst fear. There's no way around it. Principal Heibel, who's over there, Dr. Heibel, he is not only the principal of the school, he's also a parent. We evacuated the kids from that school to Leonardtown High School, where I am a parent. We got contact from Chopticon High School, where Sheriff Cameron is a parent. This is our greatest fear. And so today, it's in the sheriff's hands. Will we investigate? Will we try to understand why, what happened, and to walk through the process? We evacuated almost 1,400 students from that school to Leonardtown. We are only halfway through the reunification process with their parents. I went and spoke to both groups, and I said, please be patient. This takes time. We have to check every one of your children to make sure that they are okay, to make sure that we have resources in place that when they get home, they know that they can reach out to somebody. This is just the beginning of a very long and tragic process that we will go through in St. Mary's County. And we have done all that we're supposed to do. We have a fantastic working relationship. We communicate often. It looks as though the SRO did exactly what the SRO is trained to do, and yet we still have tragic loss of life. We still have somebody in critical condition. And we have students at the school and staff at the school impacted.
Dr. Smith, do you know when Great Mills High School will be opened up again?
So I can tell you this, all the students have been safely removed from Great Mills High School, and they're being reunited with their parents. We hope that that's concluded within the next hour or two. We will then meet with staff at the school. We are definitely going to have Great Mills High School closed for tomorrow. We know we're also anticipating inclement weather, so that may impact as well. And then we'll get together to see whether or not we can reopen this week. We may be close till the end of the week. We have to talk to the adults. We had several first-hand witnesses of the event. These were all children. It is an exceptionally tragic day. It's an incredibly important conversation. I ask that we all stay informed. If you don't think this can't happen at your school, you are sadly mistaken. We are shaken, but we are very strong in St. Mary's. This is an incredible community. I know our parents will come together. I know our kids will come together. And hopefully, on the other side of this, be stronger and make good decisions to keep our kids safe every single day.
Dr. Smith, one more question on that is a lot of parents wondering across the country, but in your case, the St. Mary's County Schools, how is it that a student could walk into the school with a handgun? And do you anticipate now in the aftermath that something will change with your school system?
I know that there's been conversations. We've had 2 community conversations about school safety after the shooting in Florida. One of the things we've talked about are metal detectors in schools. There is an associated cost related to that, as well as staff. That has been the conversation. The schools do not have metal detectors in St. Mary's County.
Does this student have a prior disciplinary history?
I can't. I won't speak to the particular motives. I leave that to Sheriff Cameron and his investigation.
Can you tell us anything more about the relationship with the shooter and the female student who led you to that information with one of their parents?
So our detectives in their interviews subsequent to the event this morning have determined that there was a prior relationship, the extent of which I can't comment on at this time. So we know that. And whether that factored in as a motive in this, I can't confirm that either at this time.
Sheriff, were there other threats to your school in the past few weeks before this incident?
We had a spate of social media threats that were all over the state of Maryland. We responded locally, appropriately, I believe, but it was a whole spate of those hoax threats throughout the state.
Also on your school resource deputy, how is he doing? Obviously, you guys are talking with him as well. And do you believe his actions saved thousands or hundreds of students in that school?
So he was unharmed, and he responded exactly as we train our personnel to respond. And I'm sure right now, in the aftermath of this, he's doing well, and we're going to do everything to support and promote him and his well-being. But you have to understand the situation that he responded in. These are children, as Dr. Smith said. And so I'm sure that weighs on his mind.
Is there any indication as to where the shooter might have got the gun? Where did that come from?
So that's part and parcel to our investigation. Our detectives, and again, there are multiple crime scenes I said earlier, which includes a car, social media, technology, and the home of the shooter. And so we're working to determine that. The ATF has initiated an emergency trace on the gun. As you can see, assembled here is quite a collection of my colleagues and leadership. And this is certainly an issue that has been prominent locally and nationally. So, and we're in the throngs, as you know, of conversation locally about our process, safety and security in our schools and how to improve that.
Sure. Can you say approximately how long from first shot to last shot this incident took?
Yeah, so that was an exact question I asked of our criminal investigation commander. And so what it looks like, it's less than minutes. My guess is less than a minute.
From the time, I just want to be totally clear. From
Yes.
the time the student shot to the time the school resource officer shot, less than a minute?
Yeah, I'm thinking seconds, but less than a minute. Definitely less than a minute.
I'd like to speak there. My name is Roman State, I'm a resident of St. Mary's County. Been here 55 years. I have run into law here. In the last 4 months, I've been involved with the high school here with the mentor program we have here. In Roanoke County and Charles County, also PC County, the program is very recognized. Unfortunately, we do have a program here in the high school here in St. Mary's that's not really recognized. I want to know what, if any, is the sheriff department and the state police department of St. Mary's County with their involvement with the program.
With a mentoring program?
Yes.
Well, I would think that it would be incumbent upon us now to talk to you more about it. I know that our SROs, part and parcel of their job is to be a mentor for our young people. not just someone that's armed and in the school.
Are you familiar with, like the Brother Hill thing, like 4 months ago, there was a shooting post take place at Green Hill High School, and I believe that sheriff went in and investigated, and the outcome I don't know, but do you think that the day had anything to do with that incident?
No, I don't.
Sheriff, do you have school surveillance video, and if so, how many cameras may have been on it?
We do have school surveillance video. It is evidence now in this criminal investigation. I have not personally viewed it. I know that our criminal investigation division commander, who's here with me, has viewed it, and I don't know how many cameras. At least two that I know.
Just to clarify one thing, Tim, that was said earlier, it appears the shooter did have, or at least at one point had a relationship with the girl.
Yes.
So are we working with the premise that that was the motive that sparked this? And the other individual that got shot, was he involved in this, or was he just happened to be an unlucky bystander?
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to guess to where the investigation will take us.
But could you say, was the girl targeted?
Well, again, there was a relationship prior to this event, and so to the extent of how that shaped this event, that's what we're going to have to determine.
Sheriff, the fatal wound to the shooter, did that come from the SRO's gun? Did he take him down and kill him?
So that, again, is what we're going to have to determine through a very detailed investigation. Again, when the SRO fired, the suspect, as described to me, fired almost simultaneously.
Did he fire at the SRO, or did he fire at himself?
That I don't know.
Sheriff, is there something about family cooperating?
As far as I know, yes.
How
Yes.
so?
I'll make sure that's provided to you.
Sheriff, can you talk about how often the SRO has been to the police? Is it mandated?
So as an agency, we went agency-wide and redefined and refined our response to active assailants from the notion of a 3 or 4 man diamond response to a single officer response. And along with that, everyone in the agency was trained. We used a brand new elementary school in cooperation with our Board of Education, and every officer was trained on a 12-hour training day. In addition to that, every member of the agency is now equipped with an individual first aid kit and combat medicine training. And that is redone every time that they go to the range. They reapply bandages and tourniquets because we know that saves lives. And part of the firearms training is individual or fundamental aspects of a response to an active shooter. It's taught in our academy, and we do it in service as well. And Dr. Smith could talk chapter and verse and what they've done in the schools in this school year alone in training staff and teachers in the schools.
Sheriff, what kind of gun did he have? I'm sorry. How much ammunition did he have? On the suspect family, Sheriff, are you able to tell us if not only are they cooperating, but were there any warning signs that they so detected?
So we haven't found any pre-incident signs as of yet, either on social media or any other evidence. I know that we're out at the shooter's home. We may determine something there that will shed light onto this event. Your question was about a handgun. It was a Glock semi-automatic handgun. I don't know how much ammunition was in it, whether there was, I don't know the extent beyond that.
So how many SROs are in Great Hills High School?
One. There's one SRO assigned to each of our high schools.
Sheriff, I know it's too early to
No.
I know it's too early to characterize this entire thing, but you seem to be painting a picture of a domestic issue. What we're hearing from witnesses is that this was really targeted at this young lady, and this is not a random shooting, and he did that and then took off with the SRO and pursuit. Can
Yes.
you sort of walk us through really what you think, what happened?
Well, I did. Again, this individual produced a gun and shot this female student. Whether the motive was to simply shoot her and that was the motive and no more, we may or may not ever know that. What we do know is the SRO did his job, engaged, and stopped the potential threat. So beyond that, we just may not have an answer. It may not be a random event. That may be his intent, but then we're guessing. And of course, beyond his intent, what was he going to do beyond that? We simply today don't know that answer, and we may never know. So.
Just one more question after this, and then we're going to cut this, okay?
I don't believe there's any connection.
It was 3 or 4 months ago when the incident occurred. It was nothing.
What I don't.
The incident 3 or 4 months ago about a shooting supposed to occur.
So no, I don't believe there's any connection. I've answered that before.
No, Governor, my question to you is that the incident 3 or 4 months ago, what is the domestic incident?
The incident that you described, that you asked me about, was a social media post, which was a hoax. And no, I don't believe there's any connection.
Sir, we can talk to you after this.
Yeah.
We're only going to take one more question.
Question for Governor Hogan. Governor, you talked about legislation in the Maryland State House. Are you happy with what President Trump and Congress is doing nationally in terms of legislation?
No, it's why we decided to move forward at the state level. And one of the discussions earlier was we were going to put $125 million into making our schools safer. That would include metal detectors for the schools that can't afford them, like St. Mary's County, and it would include school resource officers for the counties that don't have the great program that they have here in St. Mary's County, along with mental health counselors and cameras and other things.
Governor, what opposition are you running up against in Indianapolis?
I can't imagine, given the school safety crisis that we're dealing with in America, that how anyone could vote against additional school safety measures. So we're hopeful.
Calling for a vote?
It's emergency legislation. We expected it to be done a few weeks ago. We're going to keep pushing for the last 19 days of the session.
Sure.
They should act also.
Garrett's question, my colleague, the timeline, just so we've all got it very, very clear. You were saying seconds between the time that the shooter student comes into school, shoots the female, the male, and then engages with the SRO and may or may not have committed suicide? Can you walk me through the exact timeline of that, just for the record?
Yeah, so approximately 7:55 a.m. What we understand is that the shooter shot the female student, and then the SRO responded and engaged. That appears to be, as described to me, less than a minute. It could be seconds. So, and then the second part of your question, as to whether or not the shooter committed suicide, that is a potential. As I described, when the SRO fired that shot, there was a shot also fired by the suspect or the shooter. And Chris pointed out there is video, so obviously that's evidence that we will examine very closely and be able to determine, I hope, specific to those events.
Did you determine which shot hurt, which shot wounded the 14-year-old? Who shot wounded the 14-year-old?
No, not at this point. Well, those are the possibilities that this investigation will determine. I know that he was in the hallway. I don't know specifically where he was in the hallway.
All right, we're going to go ahead and conclude this. If you would like any further updates, we will be updating our social media, our Facebook and our Twitter account, and also the Sheriff's Office blog with any further information on this. And again, if I could just please remind everyone to put this out there. Anyone that knows anything about today's incident, please call the 1-800-CALL-FBI number. Thank you very much.
Can someone stay and confirm name spelling, please?
Okay.
Oh, by the way, when you leave, take all your trash with you.
All right, guys, so there you have it, the latest. That's the latest press conference from officials in St. Mary's County. St. Mary's County Sheriff enumerating a lot of details there about the shooter who they have identified as Austin Wyatt Rollins, 17-year-old senior at the high school, who shot a 16-year-old female and then later a 14-year-old male. Then the student resource officer did engage the shooter with a round, and the shooter also simultaneously fired. Now, I thought it was quite interesting. We don't know if the round from the resource officer did kill ultimately the gunman or if he killed himself, but more details to be coming from that. I'm going to flash around to some of our reporters who are still out there collecting information, listening into that press conference and giving us more. We have sort of started to research the shooter, who, like I said, they've identified as Austin Rollins, 17-year-old. And we've been trying to effort some more information on our part about him. But let's go over to see Paul Wagner and Matt Ackland. They're both out there. They're going to recap what we know so far after this press conference.
Hey guys, I'm outside Leonardtown High School. This is where the students from Great Mills were bussed over, and this is where they're being reunited with their parents. We've been talking to a lot of the kids, a lot of the parents, as they've been leaving here over the last hour and a half, last 2 hours. Some of these folks we've talked to on camera. Let me just tell you one story. Talked to a dad who works over at the Patuxent Naval Air Station. He had just dropped off his 9th grader and had driven over to work when all of a sudden he gets a text message from his son saying there's an active shooter inside the school. The father says that he texted back and forth with his son, telling him how to stay safe. The son told us that he was inside the library. He felt safe in there. The door was locked. The teacher was trying to keep them calm. But the father said it was a surreal experience after what happened at Parkland, as well as just last week. These students at Great Mills had just walked out to protest what had happened at Parkland High School in Florida. So to get this text message from his son, he says, was just surreal. And he says the reunification with his son was very emotional and overwhelming. We talked with several parents who told us the same story, that they were just hugging and kissing their children as soon as they saw them. A lot of them had been able to reach them through text messages. I talked to one student, Tyreke Wheeler is his name. He's an 11th grader. He said he was in the hallway. He heard the shot. He immediately ran to his classroom. He got inside his classroom. The teacher, making sure that everyone was inside, then locked the door. He said he felt safe in there, but was still frightened and concerned. He was reaching out to relatives via his phone and via text messages. He says then, it wasn't that long after, he says, that armed officers suddenly appeared at the doorway, got them outside, took them to the auditorium, and then they were bussed over here to Leonardtown High School. We're hearing story after story similar to that. We're also hearing that the 14-year-old who was shot in the leg is very well known in the school. A lot of kids said that they played football with him. Well known, very well liked kid. We didn't find out any information. Nobody seemed to know who the female student was or the shooter. We're live outside Leonardtown High School. Paul Wagner, Fox 5 Local News.
Here. This is primarily a St. Mary's County Sheriff's investigation, although they are being assisted by Maryland State Police, the FBI, and ATF. The work being done inside the school right now, and you heard the sheriff say, Sheriff Cameron say that there are a couple of different crime scenes inside the school. What we don't know is whether the shooter, this Austin Rawlings, whether he shot himself at the end of this or was shot and killed by the school resource officer. We should know that in the coming hours. We just don't know that right now. We also don't know the 14-year-old boy who was shot. Was that just a ricochet? Was he an innocent bystander? Did he get caught perhaps in some kind of crossfire? We just don't know. But according to the sheriff, it appears that the female student was targeted specifically, perhaps because of a past relationship with Austin, the shooter. Want to also pan off to the right here. The superintendent said that they're still reuniting the students who were here this morning, 1,600 students at this school with their families. Still, half of them have not been reunited with their families. And if you look over here, you see a lot of cars here. So those are the seniors at this high school, and staff members have their cars here. Of course, they left the property here under escort and left their vehicles here. So even if the school is closed tomorrow and perhaps Thursday and Friday as well, at some point, the students who are inside and the staff members who are inside the school when this happened this morning will be coming back here to collect their vehicles. So at some point, they're going to have to come back close to this crime scene, their beloved high school here in St. Mary's County in Southern Maryland today. So whether that'll happen later today, tonight, overnight, tomorrow, we're just not sure. But at some point in the coming hours, even if the school remains closed, the students and staff are going to be coming back here to the property guys to get their vehicles. And this investigation, you know, it's 6 hours or so old, but has a lot of work to be done still, guys. Yeah. I'll tell you, we spoke to 2 mothers when we first got here. This was about 10:15 this morning, so just 2 hours after the shooting. And the first thing that those mothers said was, we want metal detectors. And I said, you know, I know schools like Wilson High School in Washington, D.C., in the city, has metal detectors. And yet we're down here in rural, you know, southern Maryland, St. Mary's County. You want metal detectors too? And they said yes. Obviously, a student got a gun inside the school, and that was their first thing to me, was that we need better security at the schools. Well, you heard the superintendent say, well, if you do that with all the schools, I mean, it's expensive. You got to man the doors. You got to have all the equipment. And it does, I've heard people tell me in the last few weeks since Parkland that it takes away from the sense of community at a school. And as you mentioned, or he mentioned, the superintendent, yeah, it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. That's going to be, in terms of cost factor and sentiment, there are going to be some who don't want metal detectors. The first people we spoke to here, parents of students here, said they want metal detectors. Thank you, Kimberly.
Yeah, Jim, I agree with you. In fact, I was just over talking to the sheriff. You could see he's still got some reporters around him. After the press conference, he was kind of following up with some of us on exactly what took place. There sounds to be a lot of things that investigators need to figure out. One of the things we asked him off to the side was about this relationship between this young girl who's fighting for her life. You know, the sheriff alluded to the fact that there might have been some prior relationship, and reporters were asking, well, what leads you to believe that? And he said that so far they had been talking to people who knew both of them. And also the sheriff said that investigators were going to go over and talk to Austin Rawlings' family as part of their investigation to try to get more information on this. The car that apparently the Mr. Rawlings owns, they are going to search that. One reporter said, well, did he drive the car to school this morning? Are you searching it on campus? The sheriff wouldn't really allude to where the car might be, but we do know that investigators are at the home of the shooter. One more thing that a lot of people were interested in is this 14-year-old. Was he caught in the middle? Was he caught in the crossfire? Was he the target of this gunman? And the sheriff said at this point, they're looking at it as if he might have been just an innocent bystander, but he wouldn't say that's the fact. He said that's the possibility that they are looking into at this point. So still, a lot of questions here. Jim, you were right. A lot of answers we did get here from the sheriff, and definitely some strong words coming from Governor Hogan today, who said, listen, we have this, introduced this legislation. We want lawmakers to pass it to make schools safer by encouraging mental health, by encouraging other security measures, possibly those magnetometers as you go through to check to see if there are any guns. As you know, in some schools in our area, they have them, but in many schools, they don't. Here in St. Mary's County, they do not have that type of metal detector as students walk through the door. So a lot going on behind the scenes, a lot of information that we did learn at this press conference, and we're going to stay on top of it here from St. Mary's County throughout the day. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, guys, I think Matt Ackland really hit the nail on the head there. We got a lot of information from the sheriff, but still questions as to the relationship between the shooter, the male student, the 17-year-old Austin Rollins, as they're identifying him, and the female student, and then that third student, the male, 14 years old. Was he caught in the crossfire? Was he part of some sort of domestic dispute that was going on? All that to come to light hopefully in the coming days. Looks like our cameras are starting to go down. We still have a little bit of an active looking scene over here, this camera outside of Leonardtown High School, but not much more, guys, to report live from you guys here. I do want to leave with this sentiment from St. Mary's Sheriff, who is putting up that important tweet that if anyone has information regarding the shooting or what happened or what they saw, to reach out with the following number. I'm going to put it up on your screen to sort of close it out, but be mindful, guys. We're going to continue to follow this story both on digital and on our TV broadcast station throughout the evening into the night. You can follow us on Fox 5 DC for lots more coverage. We're going to continue to tweet out these clips. If you miss some of these interviews, when this stream stops, you can come back and watch it. You can go back to the beginning and watch it. We're taking down notes. We're clipping things, putting it on our YouTube, our Instagram, and our Twitter, and we're going to be here for you guys with all that coverage. So thank you so much for coming on with us. Rolling on into Saturday, we're going to be streaming the March for Our Lives, March 24th. We're coming in early and prepping for a day of coverage, aerial views of the marches, reporters down on the National Mall interviewing some of the students who are coming to DC for this very reason, this story that we are just seeing endlessly, nonstop. 3 people involved in this one today. Of course, most of the outrage sparked by the 17 victims at Parkland just a month ago or so on Valentine's Day, over a month ago now. So we'll be having that, guys, for you, and then the more snow coverage for the local DC area tomorrow, because we're expecting a little bit of snow, a little winter storm watch for tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us on our stream, guys. Take care. We'll break in with any breaking news or anything that we do have, but for now, Molly Nevola inside the newsroom. Thanks for joining us.
Attention station, we're going to make a change on your Edge Life Channel 1. We've got a bump shot of snow.
Remember when the president spoke at the American Farm Bureau Convention earlier this year, he said, "Our farmers deserve a government that serves their interests and empowers them to do the hard work they love to do so much." This administration is making sure government does that by reducing burdensome regulations, allowing them to be more productive, by cutting their taxes and empowering them to make their own decisions about investing in their operations, and by working to make sure our trade agreements are fair and that other countries play by the rules. The president was proud to issue a proclamation declaring today the 45th Annual National Ag Day. Earlier today, the president was pleased to welcome Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to the White House. This meeting provided an opportunity to make progress on a range of issues, including Syria and its sponsors, Yemen, the GCC, and our Israeli-Palestinian peace efforts. Today, we were able to engage with Saudi leadership as we do on an ongoing basis to increase our coordination on regional issues, advance shared strategic objectives, and develop new channels and capabilities to institutionalize these interactions. This afternoon, the president will also meet with top law enforcement officials, members of Congress, and administration leaders to discuss the threats of lawless sanctuary cities. Sanctuary jurisdictions release thousands of criminal aliens out of our prisons and jails and back into our communities. Such policies threaten the safety and security of our people. Every American family deserves to live in safety and security in their home and their neighborhood. Sanctuary cities make that goal much more difficult to achieve, and the president is committed to restoring the rule of law in these communities. We're also continuing to monitor the situations both in Austin, Texas, and in Maryland. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims involved in these situations, and we'll continue to work with state and local law enforcement officials around both of those incidents. And with that, I'll take your questions. John.
Sarah, let me start by asking you what the president said about potentially meeting with Vladimir Putin, quote, soon. There's nothing that will put them in the same city at the same time until November at the earliest. So what he's talking about in terms of soon, would that include either a visit of Putin to the White House or the president going to Russia?
There are no specific plans made at this time, but we want to continue to have a dialogue with Russia and continue to talk about some of the shared interests we have, whether it's North Korea, Iran, and particularly, as the president noted today, slowing the tensions when it comes to an arms race, something that is clearly important to both leaders.
And now that Putin has won yet another term as president, is President Trump concerned that he will continue his aggressive posture toward the rest of the world and maybe even increase that posture?
Look, we're going to continue to maintain the position that we've had and be tough when necessary. At the same time, we want to continue to have dialogue so that we can work on some of the issues that concern both countries. And we're going to continue to do that while also continuing to be tough on a number of things, including sanctions on Russia, rebuilding our own military, and exporting energy, things that we know are not great for Russia. Major?
I'll get your reaction to a statement that Senator John McCain, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, just put out. And I'm quoting him directly here. An American president does not lead the free world by congratulating dictators on winning sham elections. And by doing so with Vladimir Putin, President Trump insulted every Russian citizen who was denied the right to vote in a free and fair election to determine their country's future, including the countless Russian patriots who have risked so much to protest and resist Putin's regime. How do you respond?
Look, the president once again has maintained that it's important for us to have a dialogue with Russia so that we can focus on some areas of shared interest, the ones that I've already named. At the same time, we're going to continue to be tough on them. The president joined other countries in these calls. Both Germany and France have reached out, as well as President Obama in 2012. These are conversations that sometimes take place, and certainly the president finds there to be an importance in having that dialogue with Russia so that we can talk about some of the big problems that face the world.
Does the White House disagree with Senator McCain's characterization of this as a sham election?
We disagree with the fact that we shouldn't have conversations with Russia. There are important topics that we should be able to discuss, and that is why the president's going to continue to have that dialogue. At the same time, we've been very clear in the actions that we've taken that we're going to be tough on Russia, particularly when it comes to areas that we feel where they've stepped out of place. We've placed tough sanctions on Russia and a number of other things where we have shown exactly what our position is.
You brought up in context of John's question about timing, since you mentioned North Korea and Iran, is it the president's intention to meet with Vladimir Putin before he sees Kim Jong-un or makes a decision on the Iran nuclear deal?
Again, we don't have any specific plans laid out at this time.
Sarah, but neither the White House readout of that phone call with Putin nor the Kremlin's readout says anything about election meddling. Did the president not raise the issue of Russian election meddling in that phone call?
I don't believe it came up on this specific call, but it is something that we've spoken extensively about and continue to look at ways and steps forward to make sure it never happens again.
And on the president's new attorney, Joe DeGeneva, he says that there is this brazen plot by the FBI and the DOJ to frame the president. Does the White House share that view? Is there a plot to frame President Trump?
Look, we certainly have said that there have been some concerns with some of the actions that were taken, but in terms of any comments that he's made, I couldn't speak to those. Matthew?
Thanks, Sarah. Two more questions on the Putin phone call. First, does the White House believe the election in Russia was free and fair?
I'm sorry?
Does the White House believe that the election in Russia was free and fair?
Look, in terms of the election, there we're focused on our elections. We don't get to dictate how other countries operate. What we do know is that Putin has been elected in their country, and that's not something that we can dictate to them how they operate. We can only focus on the freeness and the fairness of our elections, something we 100% fully support, and something we're going to continue to do everything we can to protect, to make sure bad actors don't have the opportunity to impact them in any way.
You said election meddling didn't come up in the call. I'm curious, did the recent poisoning in the United Kingdom come up in the call?
I don't believe that was discussed in today's call. John?
Thanks a lot, Sarah. Over the weekend on one of the Sunday morning shows, Tyreke Wheeler, Republican of South Carolina, said when responding to the various tweets that the president had put out over the weekend regarding Special Counsel Robert Mueller, he said, when you're innocent, act like it. What is your response to what Tyreke Wheeler said over the weekend?
Look, the president has been very clear about the fact that there was no collusion between his campaign and any other entity. However, to pretend like going through this absurd process for over a year would not bring frustration seems a little bit ridiculous. I don't think that any individual, including members of Congress, would like it if they had been accused of taking their seat in Congress by doing something nefarious when they hadn't, particularly if it went on for more than a year into their time in office. My guess is they would be more than anxious to push back, and certainly would defend themselves, as the president has clearly done in this situation and has since day one.
Another Republican over the weekend, Lindsey Graham, also a Republican from South Carolina, said that if the president were to fire...
Maybe we need to work on our South Carolina members.
He said that if the president tries to fire Robert Mueller, it would be the beginning of the end of his presidency. What's your response to what Lindsey Graham said?
Yeah, as White House counsel Ty Cobb said earlier this week, the White House yet again confirms that the president is not considering or discussing the firing of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Bless you. Pamela?
Losing Republicans in the sense,
Sorry?
do you feel like you're losing Republicans in some way, that these two prominent Republicans from South Carolina both spoke in this manner over the weekend?
I certainly don't think we're losing Republicans at all. I think we're voicing some frustration over this ongoing process that we look forward to ending soon. Pamela?
In January, the president told a room full of reporters that he would love to sit down and do an interview with Robert Mueller under oath. And in just a couple of weeks at the time, that's what he said. Obviously, that time frame has passed. Does he still want to sit down and do an interview with Robert Mueller?
Look, we've been fully transparent throughout this process. We've been fully cooperative, and we're going to continue to be cooperative with the Office of Special Counsel. Beyond that, I can't go any further.
Provide more clarity on the president's tweets toward Robert Mueller over the weekend, calling him out by name. What was behind that?
Like I just said, clearly we have not been shy about the fact that there is frustration of this process. We would like it to end quickly and soon, and the president has contended since day one and will continue to do so that there was absolutely no collusion between his campaign and any outside force or country. And so I don't understand why it's hard for anyone to process. If you had been attacked mercilessly and continuously, day in, day out, every single second, while you're trying to work hard to do good things for this country, and literally every day you wake up to an onslaught of people saying that you're there because of reasons that are completely false, that's frustrating, and certainly I think fair for him to be frustrated.
Why doesn't he push for the firing of Robert Mueller if he thinks the probe shouldn't have begun in the first place? If he thinks the whole thing is a witch hunt, why doesn't he push for the firing?
Look, we're going to continue to be cooperative, and we would like this to wrap up soon. We don't feel like that's the most productive step forward, but we would like to see this come to a conclusion. Jordan.
Thanks, Sarah. I want to follow up on the accusations of fraud in the Russian election. Why does the United States government not believe that it should criticize Russia for these accusations, which have been brought up by the OSCE and UK government directly in the statement? You know, they're listing things like restrictions on fundamental freedoms and lack of access for opposition candidates. I mean, why doesn't the president of the White House believe that's something that they should be discussing with the Russian leader?
I didn't say that we couldn't discuss it with the Russian leader. I said it didn't come up on today's call. Again, the focus was to talk about areas of shared interest. We know that we need to continue a dialogue. It's important for a lot of the safety and security of people across the globe. We would like to be able to work with them on things like North Korea, on Iran, and also both countries shared interest in lowering the tensions when it comes to an arms race, recognizing that that's not the best thing for either country. And so we want to be able to have those conversations, and that was the point of today's call. John?
When's an appropriate time to raise questions about political freedoms with Russia?
Look, we've continued to talk about these important issues, but that's not simply what today's call was about. John?
Thank you, Sarah. Two questions. First, we've discussed the president's call to President Putin following his reelection. Did the president make a similar call to Chancellor Angela Merkel, who has just formed a new government and assumed her fourth mandate in Berlin?
I know he spoke with the chancellor, I believe it was last week. I'd have to look back at the specific details of their conversation, but I know that they spoke within the last week.
The other thing is that Congressman Ryan Costello of Pennsylvania is expected, if not today, sometime in the coming weeks, to announce he's not running for re-election, making him the 38th Republican House member to announce retirement, resignation, or pursuit of another office, a post-World War II high in the exodus of Republican House members. Is this something the president is bothered about? And do members call him when they say he'll make announcements like this?
Certainly he's had conversations with a number of members. I can't speak to this situation specifically and whether or not he's spoken with the president. We're not concerned right now. We think we've got a great story to tell after the first year of being in office, and we look forward to communicating that to the American people and continuing to push the president's agenda. David?
Sarah, did the topic of religious liberty come up at all with the Crown Prince today? Did the president bring that up at all? Do you know?
I don't believe that came up, but I'd have to check on the last half of the meeting to be sure, because I wasn't there. Trey?
Thanks, Sarah. Two foreign policy questions for you. Human Rights Watch estimates that the Saudi-led coalition is responsible in 2017 for the deaths of 1,000 civilians and took part in 85 unlawful airstrikes. Did the president bring up these concerns about high civilian casualties in his meeting with the Crown Prince today?
I'm not aware that that came up specifically. Again, I'd have to check on the last half of the meeting because I'm not sure.
About the call between President Trump and Russian President Putin. The Russians said that Syria came up in the call. The readout that was released by the Trump administration did not include any mention of Syria. Did the president discuss the issue of Syria with Vladimir Putin, and did he discuss the high civilian casualties as a result of efforts by the Assad regime and the Russian government on the ground in Syria?
It briefly came up, and as you know, we've had a number of public statements on our position there, and that certainly has not changed.
Yesterday, the Canadian Prime Minister noticed the signs of the pace of NAFTA talks is accelerating, and he said that the President Trump, is enthusiastic about getting a deal. Is the President that enthusiastic?
The president's always enthusiastic about making a good deal, but that would be the key caveat to any conversation is making sure that whatever deal he makes is good for Americans and American workers. And so anything we do, that would have to be part of that conversation.
There seems to be a end of April deadline. After that, the entire political process is going to get over the negotiations on NAFTA. Anything possible be that quick within 6 weeks?
I don't have any specific announcement that's at this time, but we're continuing to have those negotiations and continuing to have those conversations being led primarily by Ambassador Lighthizer and working with the president. Take one last question for the president's event. Jonathan?
Thank you, Sarah. The president frequently speaks about the need to improve the nation's crumbling infrastructure. Can you explain his opposition to the Gateway Project, which is a rail tunnel between New Jersey and his home state of New York that has the support of many Republicans and also, according to one study, is key to 20% of the nation's gross national product?
The president specifically wants to address infrastructure on a broader scale, not put all our emphasis into one project. We certainly want to see the infrastructure across this country rebuilt, which is why we put forward priorities when it comes to that in a plan moving forward. And we look forward to working with Congress to make some real progress on that in the coming days. Thanks so much. And the President's got an event here in just a few minutes. Thanks, guys.